everybody, welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, hi, my name is Kat, and for today, this has been the most requested video for the start of this year. I am going to be going through the entirety of my eyeshadow collection and doing a massive declutter. So within these two things, I've got the bottom two rows as well as this top shelf, and then a bunch of shelves within this compartment that are all full of eyeshadows. So we are going to be going through absolutely all of it today. So make sure that you guys grab a sit somewhere, get a drink, snacks, whatever you feel like, and we are just going to jump right in, drawer to drawer to drawer, and go through the whole entire thing. This is gonna be absolutely crazy. And the doggos already know what's up. Rogue is resting, ready to just take a nap while this happens. They might come in and out. They like to check out what the makeup is smelling like. So she and Falco will be around as we go through. So hopefully there'll be some little doggo breaks in between. But isn't she just the cutest? I love her. All right, drawer number one. We've got two rows of eyeshadow palettes. And let's just start pulling them out and taking a look at everything. All right, all the eyeshadows from drawer number one have been emptied out, so let's jump right in. First, we have several from Juvia's Place. We have the Nomad, which is a really nice, kind of more warm-toned, grungy neutral palette. I really enjoy this, so definitely holding on to that. We have the Tribe, which is also very grungy, but a bit more colorful of a palette. Really also love this one. And then we have the Valhalla palette. Very colorful, but the only thing I'm not a huge fan of, I don't really like pressed glitters all that much, and so I don't use those, but I do enjoy the Juvia's Place formula, so I will also be holding on to this guy. Then we have from Makeup a Murder, this is the Crime Scene Trace Evidence eyeshadow palette, and it's just a standard matte rainbow palette. I don't really use this one all that much. I find that from Makeup a Murder, I use their loose pigments far more, but I'm going to keep this one because this is going to be a really good one for me to display. My plan is I'm going to be changing my entire filming setup around. I'm going to be filming in my makeup room soon rather than over in my other room, and so all of the different shelving and everything is going to be coming away. I'm going to have a lot more display case type things, and so this is going to go in the displays because I just think it looks really awesome. I'm also a huge fan of true crime, so this whole aesthetic I absolutely love, but I thought it would be more fun for me to film where you guys can see a lot of what my collection looks like, so that in case you ever wanted to have me actually do looks with them, you see what I have and you can just be like, oh, could you do another look with whatever, you know? And so I think that would be far more fun. So kind of changing a whole lot of stuff around for the new year, but this is going to be kept for display purposes. Then we have from Rebel Rouge Labs the Howlin' For You palette. I absolutely love the design of their palettes. I think Rebel Rouge Labs does an awesome job. I mean, very spooky for the Halloween season. Really enjoy it. And then the color story inside of here is absolutely perfect. It's like my dream color story, combining greens, purples, and oranges. I mean, it's amazing. The only thing I hate is the pressed glitter in here. If I do use pressed glitters, I am very particular about the type of formula, as you'll see with some other palettes that I will talk about where I use their pressed glitters, but this is one that I'm not really a huge fan of, but their mattes and metallics are really nice, and so I'm definitely keeping this guy, if for nothing else, definitely for the aesthetic of the palettes. This will also be going in displays, but I 100% still use it. Then we have from Melt Cosmetics, this is the Mori Mariposa palette, and you guys have seen me talk about this one before. I really like the cover art as well as this beautiful gold packaging of the box. It has like red velvet on the inside, really nice. And the color story on the inside is also really gorgeous, but for whatever reason, Melt Cosmetics for me is very hit or miss on whether the formula actually works for me. And with this particular palette, you can see it's hardly touched at all, but I did try and do a few looks with it, and it is one of those that just is not working for me. But I love how beautiful the packaging is, and so what I'm probably gonna end up doing is keeping this, taking it out of my actual palettes that I use. One of the things that I've really gotten into is actually using eyeshadows that I don't use for my face anymore, and especially with like the shimmers and metallics, I will make them into either watercolor paints for different artwork, or I will use especially the shimmers to help alter the colors if I'm doing a polymer clay sculpture, because I'm very into artsy craftsy stuff, and so that's one of the things that I will use so that they don't go to waste. So any of the palettes where I don't use them, if I enjoy the colors though, I will use them for arts and crafts purposes. I just won't use them for my face anymore. Then we have from Ace Beauté, this is the Nostalgia palette, and I have not actually tried this out yet. I have a couple other Ace Beauté palettes that I have dipped into, and I do enjoy their formula quite a bit. And so since I haven't tried it out yet, I want to hold on to it, see how I like it, but I enjoy their formula, and so I have no doubt that I will dip into this at some point in the near future. Then we have several palettes from Hip Dot. This one is really, really nice. It's a lot of your more kind of earthy tones, terracotta shades, some nice plummy shades. This is the Zion palette, and I really, really enjoyed the aesthetic of this one as well as this guy, which is the C-Note palette, and both of them are kind of marbly designs on the outside covers, and they're meant to be your more earthy shades, and so I really, really enjoy the color stories on these, and their formula is really, really nice. It's not super expensive, and so definitely holding on to this one as well as this guy. I mean, we know I love blues and greens and golds. This palette is definitely a good one for me. Really enjoy the shimmers in this one. They're very, very nice metallics, and so absolutely holding on to this. Then we have the Boss's Beauty palette from Hip Dot, and this was a gift for me from a friend of mine. Not a huge fan of the color story on here, but I do really like the exterior again of how it looks, and so probably won't end up dipping into this guy, but there are definitely several shades that I can use for some of my artsy craftsy stuff, so I will hold on to it and use those shades for those purposes, and then probably just display it because I enjoy the outside cover. Then we have from LA Girl, this is the Main Stage Desert Dream eyeshadow palette, and it's a little bit difficult to open. You have to really get your thumbnail under there, but this is the palette on the inside. Really, really beautiful color story. Their palettes are super duper inexpensive, and I absolutely love these shimmers on here. They are so, so pretty, so I will definitely be holding on to this guy. Then we have from Moira Cosmetics, this is the Wild in Colors palette, and they had 4 in this series, but this is the one that I ended up grabbing. The matte shades, super, super pigmented, absolutely love them. They only had 2 metallic ones in here, and I found that I really had to kind of dig in to get any kind of payoff from them, so that's why you can see there's like huge divots on both of them. And then there's also 2 pressed glitters, so I don't really use any of the shimmers in this palette. I primarily just stick with the matte shades, and because of how pretty this design of the peacock is on inside, I don't really touch it a whole lot because I don't want to mess up how pretty it is. And so I think this one I'm going to end up pulling out of my normal collection, and it's just going to be for aesthetic purposes, and then I'll use a couple of the shades for my art projects. Then we have from Linda Hallberg, this is the Enchanted Mysteries palette. It's a nice cute little quad. I absolutely love, love, love this palette. I know I have not touched it a whole lot, but it's just because I could stare at these 4 shades all day long. The quality is really, really nice. This emerald green shade, absolutely gorgeous. This particular iridescent shade is a very, very nice topper, and then both of these are really beautiful metallic shades. It's such a gorgeous palette, and I love the vibe of it, and so I will for 100% never get rid of this palette because I just love the color story so, so much. But I do dip into it only on rare occasions because it was very pricey for only being a quad. Linda Hallberg is not a cheap brand, and so for whatever reason with any of the products that I have that cost a lot of money, I very rarely dip into them because I'm like, well, when it's used up, you're not gonna have the money to buy it again. So I think that's why I don't use it a whole lot, but I absolutely love it. Then we have from Cosmic Beauty, this is the Serenity palette. I had talked about this in my top 10 for this year. Absolutely love this color story. I will not be getting rid of this anytime soon. It is going to be used to filth this year. So I just really love it, and I am very excited to see what they do for new releases this year. Then we have from Huda Beauty, this is the Mercury Retrograde palette, and mine arrived a little bit broken, which was definitely a bummer, and so the case just kind of is falling apart, but I do really enjoy this color story. It's a very nice pastel-y color story, so really nice for spring. The shimmer shades look absolutely gorgeous. These three especially are so pretty, and ever since I found a couple new primers, I'm able to use the Huda Beauty formula without running into any issues. It used to be that I had a lot of problems with the longevity of the shadows, and that completely fixed it for me. It's the new Hydro Grip primer from Milk. It's not the face one, it's the little eyeshadow one, and for whatever reason that one is absolutely perfect for my eyelids, which are a little bit more oily. So if you are someone that has more oily eyelids, you might really enjoy the Milk primer. And so for me, that helped to transform a lot of eyeshadows that originally weren't staying on my lids for very long. Then we have 3 palettes from Midas Cosmetics, and Midas actually closed their doors, I think it was at some point last year, but I think they were doing a rebrand and possibly returning. I just haven't double checked on that, but I know that they had pretty much gotten rid of everything that they had in stock to kind of navigate through all of that. And so one of the palettes that I have from them is the Genesis palette. This was a collab that was done between Midas and Drench Cosmetics, and their palettes are absolutely beautiful. The quality is really good for the eyeshadows, and the whole premise behind Midas is that they want to have the most inclusive products possible. And so I absolutely love this palette. It is very nice for deeper skin tones. For lighter skin tones, you can also really use this palette very well to create a lot of dimension and different tones on there. And so I absolutely love this palette. It is so gorgeous. Then we have the collab between Smoky Glow and Midas, and really enjoyed this palette. I loved all of the different names of the shades. Smoky Glow, Hannah, she is definitely one of the first beauty YouTubers that I'd ever watched, and I still watch her to this day, so I will be holding on to this no matter what. And then we have the Perception palette, and this guy is very colorful. I will, however, say that the majority of the shimmers are more topper shades. They are not super opaque, much more on the transparent side, and so you just have to build them up a little bit more if you're wanting to have a little bit stronger of a pigment. But the matte shades, again, really nice. So I'll be holding on to all 3 of these, especially since I don't think you can get any of them anymore. Then we have several palettes from Lethal Cosmetics. This guy, which was their first multi-chrome palette that they released, and I really enjoyed it. I thought that the multi-chromes were nice. They're not the best multi-chrome formula I've ever come across, but still very nice. I think, though, if you live in Europe, it's a really great palette to get. Because then you don't have to worry about the shipping costs. And so if you were wanting to have decent multi-chromes and you live in Europe and you can't have access to some of the brands that are in other countries, this is a good option for you to grab. But for me, living here in the States, I think it's just a little bit too heavily priced when you have to calculate in the cost of shipping as well. And so for me, they are not that good of quality to where it's worth the cost. There are other things from Lethal that I would much rather get. Their complexion products are absolutely outstanding, but for me, these multi-chromes were just mediocre at best, and so I'm probably not going to end up using this palette anymore for my eyes, but I will 100% be keeping this palette to go into my arts and crafts collection, because I definitely can use these for my polymer clay sculptures. Then we have the Berlin palette from Lethal, and I will no matter what hold on to this palette. I'm originally from Germany, and so Germany themed things I always want to hold on to, and Lethal is from Germany, they're from Berlin, and I really enjoy this color story. It has one multi-chrome, and this guy is a very good multi-chrome. It also has 2 additional shimmers on there. They're both very nice, and the matte shades are absolutely wonderful. I really enjoy the formula for the matte shades, and so to me, I'm definitely going to hold on to this, definitely still going to use it, and so it's remaining in my collection. Then we have the Lethal is Dead collab that was between Lethal and Teresa is Dead. She is another YouTuber that I am a huge fan of. This is the palette that was created. I'm not a huge fan of this color story. It's just kind of hard for me to see a ton of looks, even though there's a lot of different colors. It's just not a color story that I would immediately gravitate toward and just have looks pop into my head right away. I do really enjoy the formula, as I said before, and so I'm probably gonna keep it and just end up moving these guys into my single shadow collection that I have from Lethal, so that way they're all together, because then I can definitely imagine more looks. And since a lot of these colors are a little bit deeper, like these two especially, those would really help out with creating more depth on some of the other looks that I would end up creating. So I will hold on to this guy, but I'm probably gonna end up depotting everything and putting it into my singles collection, and then I'll just keep this for display purposes. Then we have from Alamar Cosmetics, this is the Encanto palette. So pretty. I really enjoyed this color story. It's like a grunge pastel color story, and you've got a bunch of different matte shades and then a whole lot of different shimmer shades, and I thought the formula was very nice. I was able to create some really nice looks with it, and this is the only palette that I have from Alamar right now, and so I'm definitely going to hold on to it. Then we have from Cleonda, this is the Dragon Fruit palette, and it is full of some really gorgeous shimmers. It's the only palette I have from Cleonda. Everything else is just part of their singles collection with their stained glass shades. And so I'm definitely going to be holding on to this guy just so that I have it in my collection. It is some different formulas than just the multi-chromes that I have from them. There's a whole lot of different textures and formulas, so I will hold on to this guy. Then we have the Venus palette from Ditto, and I think I got this in like a BoxyCharm or an Ipsy back when I was getting those. And very neutral palette, but has some very interesting looking formulas on there. I have not actually touched it yet, and so I'm gonna hold on to it because I want to see what the formulas actually look like. Then we have from Martine Cosmetics, this is the Triple X palette, and I showed this guy off in my speed reviews video that I had done recently. This is the color story. It is absolutely stunning. I am definitely holding on to this guy. I've only dipped into it a couple times so far, but that's because I got it towards the end of the year, but absolutely holding on to this and really excited to see what else the brand comes out with. Then we have from Bella Beauty Bar a couple palettes. We have the Strange and Unusual, which is absolutely awesome. This made it into my top 10 for 2022 as well. I mean, you can see I love the shimmers. I dip into them quite a bit. The matte shades are also really nice. You just got to use your finger for everything if you want maximum payoff, but I absolutely love it. Then we also have the Poison Garden 2 palette, and that is what this guy looks like. It's like a grungy or rainbow palette to me, but also has some pastel shades in there that you could use for springtime, but really nice. Several different shimmer formulas, just like with the Strange and Unusual palette, so you have a whole lot of different options for what type of blend you're wanting to get and how much color payoff, so really enjoyed this. Then we have from Denise Myricks, I picked up the Lightwork Volume 4 palette, and I will be doing a video with this. I have not used it yet, but this is the color story on the inside, and I want to say there's like 4 or 5 different formulas within the palette, and so we will be talking about all of the different formulas, how to use them, because I know for me, I was really wanting to get a Denise Myricks palette, but I'm very intimidated by a few of the formulas, especially these guys in the middle and then the 2 on the outside, because they're not quite what you would expect from a normal palette, and so we're gonna walk through all of it together. We're gonna learn together and work our way through, but the color story is absolutely stunning, so I am very excited for us to get into this. Then we have all of my Natasha Denona palettes. We have the Glam palette. Absolutely love this guy. It's one of my favorite neutral palettes, was definitely in my top 10 that I did last year, and really enjoy it. I love how a lot of the shades are more cool toned neutral shades rather than warm tone, but you do still have a few warm toned shades, and so I really love this palette. Then we have the Love palette. I don't normally gravitate towards these particular shades. I don't wear a lot of red looks or plummy looks, and so I don't use this palette a ton, and so I'm probably just going to end up keeping this for display purposes because I'm probably going to end up displaying all of my Natasha Denona palettes, but I don't really use it a whole lot, and so I'll just end up keeping the shades for arts and crafts things. Then we have the Trichrome palette. I will definitely be holding on to this. I absolutely love the color story. The 3 multi-chromes that are in here, especially these 2 at the top, very, very nice, and all of the matte shades are absolutely gorgeous, so definitely holding on to this one. Then we have the Circo Loco palette. I hate this palette. I did not get really good payoff with it. There were a lot of very patchy shades and the metallics didn't really show up the way that I'm used to. So for whatever reason, I don't know what it is, but this particular palette did not work for me the way that all of my other Natasha Denona ones do. And so this one is going to be one of those that I use for arts and crafts and then have on display. Then we have the Metropolis palette. Absolutely love this guy. It is so worth the money. The shadows are so nice, very rich in color payoff, and I absolutely love it. I have not had it for super duper long, and so that's why it hasn't had much use yet, but it is definitely one of the more expensive ones where I feel like for whatever reason, her super expensive palettes, it's like a completely different formula from her ones that are in the metal tins. Like, this is the brown and green one that we'll get into in a minute, and it's the most expensive one that she has. I want to say it was like $240 some, and that palette, the purple and blue that is the same size as this one, and then any of the palettes that were in this particular style of casing, it's a different formula, but it is so good. It blows my mind. And so I don't know what it is. It's definitely worth it. So I will absolutely be holding on to this guy. And it's the same with this one. This is the brown and green palette. You can see I definitely dip into this guy a whole lot. I absolutely love this palette. Again, the formula is just something else, but it is so good. And so I will definitely be holding on to this guy as well. And then we have all of my Odin's Eye palettes. We have the Christmas Eve palette and the Merry Christmas palette. They were limited edition ones. I will be doing a video with this because you guys definitely let me know that you were wanting to see videos, so we will be touching on both of these guys in an upcoming video. You'll see swatches, and we'll do 2 different eye looks, so that way we can see how both palettes work. Then I have the Saga of Freya, which was one of a series of 3 palettes, and so I got this one because I really enjoy the green and orange tones in this one. It was very nice. Plus I love the shimmer formula from Odin's Eye, and so I thought this was absolutely perfect. And they're a little bit more interesting of shimmers. They have kind of these like different designs in the palette, and so you get a couple like two-toned styles as you're using it. Then we have the collaboration that was between 3 different YouTubers. This one is the Red Dragon, which was a collaboration with Judy, and absolutely gorgeous. It is more neutral leaning, but not nearly as much as what it initially looks like. You have a lot of really great colors, like this super grungy green, this deep kind of like extra dark raspberry, and then a really nice eggplant shade, this bright red, and again the shimmers are gorgeous. Then you have the Giant Wolves palette, which was with Annette, and absolutely gorgeous color story. Several multi-chromes in this palette. They are really beautiful. And then the final one is the Hummingbird with Fancy Face, and just the brightest color story you could possibly want. Again, a few multi-chromes. This guy, especially the Fancy shade, absolutely gorgeous. And so yeah, super duper enjoy those palettes. Definitely holding on to them. Then we have the Solomane 2 palette. Really beautiful color story. Definitely going to be holding on to this guy. We have the Alva 2 palette. Very beautiful color story. More of your bright pastel shades. Does have 2 pressed glitters in here, as well as a whole bunch of other metallics. Then we have the Norns palette, which is also these more circular pans. Really beautiful. This was when they were starting to step out of the realm of just the standard metallics that they had in the Alva and the Alva 2 palette and in the Solomane 1. So this was where they were starting to branch out, where you have a little bit more of the multi-chrome shades as well as some other beautiful shimmers. Again, the matte tones are really beautiful in this palette. And then the final one that I have is the Gila palette, which was a collab between Odin's Eye and Angelica Nyquist. This is the palette on the inside. Really, really beautiful. Love the grungy green tones. This deeper metallic shade is absolutely gorgeous. It's like a really nice deep silvery tone. Couple other really nice shimmers. This one is more of a multi-chrome shimmer, so really, really beautiful. I am definitely holding on to all of them. Then we have 3 of our palettes from Lunar Beauty. We have the Strawberry Dream. Again, I don't really lean towards this color story that much, but I really wanted to get this palette because since I love the Eternal Eclipse, I wanted to have the like light and dark match on there, and so I don't use it a ton, so I would say this is probably going to be one of those palettes that I'll use for display purposes, and then the shades inside I will just use for arts and crafts things. But the formula is really, really good, and so if I on occasion end up using it for my eyes, that would definitely be a possibility. But as far as the palettes that I get more use out of, the Eternal Eclipse, 100%. I absolutely love the neutral to like deep blues, and then you have these really nice metallic shades at the top. It is so, so gorgeous, and so this is definitely a palette that especially around the winter time I dip into a ton. And then we have the Moonspell palette. I absolutely love this. No matter what, I would keep it for display purposes, but it is a really, really gorgeous palette. I love how colorful the matte shades are, and then you have some really beautiful shimmers as well, so definitely holding on to this guy too. So then we have 3 palettes from the ZC Cosmetics. They were all a collaboration with the British Museum. I want to say they had like 6 or 7 palettes that were in this collaboration, and the design of the palettes is absolutely gorgeous. They have this really nice metal design on top, and then as you get close you can see that there's another design underneath, and it is just really, really beautiful. The color stories on the inside are very, very nice. This one's a nice neutral toned palette with some pops of color. It is very, very pretty. It's with the Eye of Horus. And so I really, really like the design. I think they're so beautiful. This one is with an Ankh design. Very nice color story, a lot of bright colors on there. I love the little embossing that they have with the scarab beetles, the Eye of Horus again, a whole bunch of different things on there. So the palettes are absolutely gorgeous. This is the 3rd one, also a little bit more neutral with some pops of color. The only thing I will say is that I don't use these a ton because they do irritate my eyes for whatever reason. It just causes my eyes to water a lot, and the skin on my lids gets very irritated. So for me in particular, I don't really use them anymore on my lids, but I will be keeping them for display purposes because they are just so, so gorgeous. And then we have 3 more and we are done with the first drawer. Up next we have from Hikari. This is a really beautiful palette that was a gift to me from a friend. I love the butterfly design on there. The palette inside is definitely a bit more neutral toned with just a little bit of a pop of color. I'm not a huge fan of the formula of it, but I will definitely be keeping it for display purposes because I love this butterfly. I just think it's so beautiful with the colors inside and the gold embossing, and so this guy will definitely be a display palette. Then we have from Perfect Diary Beauty. This is meant to be a bit more earthy tones, as you can definitely see with the palette. Really beautiful colors, but I mean just absolutely gorgeous. I love the swirls within some of these pans. I have not tried this out yet, and so I'm very curious to see what I think of it, but really, really beautiful packaging on there, so we will be giving this guy a go soon. Then we have from Tarte. This is the Tartist Pro. Very neutral palette, but still pretty nice, and has a couple shimmers on the side that are your standard metallics, and then a lot of matte shades. I haven't really touched into this that much. I'm not a huge fan of the Tarte formula, and so I think I am going to end up decluttering this one, and it's not a color story where I feel like I would use it for arts and crafts types of stuff, so I'll see if a friend might like it more. Alright, next up we've got the bottom drawer, and this is where I have a lot more of my smaller palettes in here, as well as a whole bunch more over there, so let's empty it out and jump right in. Alright, next up we've got the bottom drawer, and this is where I have a lot more of my smaller palettes in here, as well as a whole bunch more over there, so let's empty it out and jump right in. Alright, so to kick off drawer 2, we have from Asgard Queen, 2 different palettes, and they are all handmade. I will, however, say that they're very, very light and kind of cheaply made. Like it's neat because they'll have like little ribbons, but these are just 2 staples inside of the palette, and then the paper is just glued on. And then inside of here, it's just a little bit of a glittery thing, and then these are the palettes. But you can see the pans aren't even filled all the way, and so I felt that that was a little bit disappointing. And it's the same thing with this guy. The pans aren't filled all the way with these either. And so to me, it just kind of wasn't really worth it. I had picked them up on Etsy, and so I was just a little bit disappointed. I'm probably gonna end up moving the eyeshadow pans out of here and then just put them into my single pan collection, and then just keep these as like little displays because I kind of like the fantasy science fiction-y view of them. But yeah, I'm not going to be picking up anything else from them. Then we have 2 more palettes from Tarte. These were from the Rainforest collection. So this is the first of the 2. Very, very neutral palette, very, very light. This is the deepest shade out of the entire palette, and it's a medium brown tone, so not super inclusive as far as that goes. I'm also just not a huge fan of the formula, and so I think I'm going to end up decluttering this guy as well. Same thing with this one. This was from the Rainforest of the Sea palette, and I really enjoyed the color story. I thought as far as neutral palettes go, it was really nice. This guy has almost a hint of a little bit of green, so I thought that as far as the color story goes, this was really, really nice, would be great for traveling, but has 0 longevity for me, and so I just not a huge fan, so I think I'm going to declutter this guy as well. Then next up from Dior, this is the Denim palette, and it has some really nice blues in there. Very, very pretty. They're all right as far as like the formula goes. It's not the best formula out there, and so I just don't really find that I gravitate towards it all that much. I've used it a couple times, and the looks that I made weren't that impressive, so I'm probably not going to really reach for this anymore. I'm definitely not going to be buying anything else from Dior when it comes to eyeshadow unless they reformulate, and so it just wasn't worth the cost to me at all. So I'll probably keep it for display purposes and then just use the shimmers for watercolors, but that's about it. Then we have from Valentino Beauty. This palette was actually kind of interesting when I got it. So the typical design and coloring of Valentino products, and then when you open it up, it has 2 brushes in there and then 4 shades on top, but then you open it up and there's another 4 shades, and so you end up with an 8-pan palette, which isn't bad, and for that I thought that was kind of nice. Again, the quality of the shades is alright. I've used it once so far, and it's okay, but I'm gonna keep it primarily for display and because it was very nice packaging and it's pretty, but I can find far better quality in any of my other palettes, and so I'm not really going to be reaching for this guy all that much. Then we have a palette from Abby's Choice, and I really enjoyed this because it kind of gave me some Sailor Moon vibes on the cover, and so I really liked that. I love Sailor Moon so much, and this is the palette on the inside, primarily very neutral tones, has 1 highlighter and a blush along with these 6 other shades, and the shimmers are cute. This is a pressed glitter, but it's not bad as far as pressed glitters go. It's not super gritty, which I like, and so I thought it was alright. I don't really reach for it all that much, but I will be keeping it because, I mean, especially like with the embossing on here, it's just such a Sailor Moon vibe, and I will forever love Sailor Moon, so I will keep it if for no other reason, for display purposes. Then we have from Morphe. This was their collab with Lisa Frank. This is the 35B, and it came in 3 different designs, and I grabbed the one with the little tiger on it, and I don't like Morphe. I don't like their formula, but I primarily got it just because growing up I had always wanted a Lisa Frank Trapper Keeper, and that is exactly what this reminds me of. The shades I am 100% just going to turn into watercolors and then use them that way, and so this will just be for display purposes, and it's just mainly for the nostalgia that I picked it up. Then we have from Be Perfect. This is the Carnival 3 palette, And this guy, the reason why I picked this one up instead of the other two Carnival palettes that they released earlier was that the other two, instead of it just being eyeshadows, had like highlighters and complexion products in there as well. And I'm not a huge fan of that. And so I just wanted the whole entire thing to be eyeshadows. So that's why I grabbed this guy. Super pretty rainbow palette. I really like Be Perfect's formula. I think it's a very nice one, so I will definitely hold on to this guy. And then the other Be Perfect Carnival palette that I grabbed was the Antidote. Absolutely gorgeous, one of the best fall palettes that you can get, and I really, really love it, so definitely holding on to this one. Then we have from Tom Ford. This is the only quad that I have from him. It's 4 different neutral metallics, and I was just wanting to try it out, so I grabbed this one because I really like the color of the exterior packaging, and then on the inside I love a good metallic. However, this guy is going to be included in my comparison video of foils versus metallics, and compared to other brands, it is just mediocre at best, certainly not worth the price. And so the only real reason why you would keep it is if you enjoy collecting luxury products. But for me, it's just not worth the money. I will hold on to it though, since I already have it. Then we have a couple palettes from Jolie Beauty. First up is the Zombified palette. This guy I will be featuring in an upcoming video. This is all of the neon shades you could ever want. And the metallics are absolutely gorgeous in here. It is such a cool palette, and a lot of the shades are UV activated. So if you ever go to like somewhere where there's a black light, I mean, you're gonna be bright in there. And so I thought that was such a cool concept and absolutely perfect for Halloween time. So we are definitely going to be taking a look at this. I have a black light where we'll be able to see the difference in the shades when it's natural lighting versus the black light. So very excited about this guy. Then we have the Ethereality palette. This made it into my top 10 for last year. Absolutely gorgeous palette. The shimmers are so stunning. I mean, this guy, Fairy Dust, absolutely beautiful. The Even Star shade, absolutely beautiful. The Starry-Eyed shimmer, absolutely beautiful. And then the color story of the matte shades is really, really nice. And I definitely enjoy the blendability of the matte shades. And they are a UK brand. And so if you are someone that is from the UK, definitely worth checking out. Vampirism palette made it into my top 10 for palettes for 2021. This was the first palette that I got from Jolie Beauty. It is absolutely stunning. It is really, really gorgeous. The red tones in here were so nice, so definitely keeping this guy as well. All right, so all of our ColourPop palettes that I have here that are the smaller 9-pan palettes. We have the High Tide palette. I really like this color story. It is very, very pretty. I love a good teal blue, and so this palette is really nice. I have the Baroque palette, which is more of your cool toned grays and silvery, kind of a little bit purplish leaning as well, but really love this color story. We have the Mandalorian, which is just super, super cute. I love the grungy nature of the greens and of the neutral shades. They're a little more cool toned leaning. Plus, he's so cute, and so I had to have it for him. I'm not even a huge Star Wars fan, but I mean, he's cute. Then we have from Tinkerbell, this is the Sprinkle a Little Magic palette. Again, really love grunge greens, and so this color story for me was really nice. All of the different shimmer metallics are very pretty, and then you've got some good matte shades. Then we have their 3 springtime palettes that they came out with. This is the Aura and Out. Very nice kind of lime greens and yellows with a little bit of orange. Very pretty palette. The In a Trance palette, more of your pinks and purples with a little bit of blue. The Miss Bliss, which is more of your peachy oranges and a little bit of some burnt rose shades. Then we have all of the monochromatic palettes. This is the Ooh La La. Very nice magenta, pinks, and a little bit purple. Main Squeeze, which is your strawberry reds. Very, very pretty. The Blue Moon, beautiful monochromatic blue palette. Just My Luck, your grungy greens. I love that they added this kind of pop of gold in there. I thought that was perfect, so really liked that. Orange You Glad, this is all of your very orangey tones. It's My Pleasure, is your more violet-y purple shades with a little bit of a pop of pink. And then Honey is your really nice grungy mustardy yellow shades. So I will be keeping all of those. I do really enjoy the ColourPop formula, and so I do dip into these on occasion, and so I will be holding on to them. All right, then we have three palettes from Marc Jacobs. This one is a very nice lilac palette. This was one of my favorite ones that I did in my battle of the lilac palettes. Very, very pretty. I love how it's more cool tone to silver leaning. So, and I really enjoy the Marc Jacobs formula. I wish that you could still get a lot of these, but you cannot. Then we have this awesome one, which is the Grungy Gold Neutral palette. Also has a little bit of kind of an olivey greenish gold shimmer in there too. Really enjoy that one. And then the final one was a gift from a friend, and this is your Cool Toned Neutral palette. Really like that one as well, so I will be holding on to those. Then we have two palettes from Charlotte Tilbury. I just talked about how not a fan of their palettes I am. This was their kind of grungy greenish gold palette. It just blended into a shade of brown. Very disappointed with that. And then we have this guy, which is their original Pillow Talk quad, and again, the shades kind of all blended together into one, and so not a huge fan of them. I will probably end up keeping them for like display purposes because the packaging is kind of nice, and at least with the shimmers, I can definitely use those for some of my artwork. And so I will be holding on to them for that reason. Then we have three palettes from Give Me Glow. The Haunted Pumpkin palette I have not done a look with yet for you guys, so that will be coming in an upcoming speed reviews video. I really, really like the color story of this. I think it looks super cool, and I'm very interested to try the metallic shades, especially this guy. He looks a little bit more foiled, and I love the embossing that they have on the palette. I think it's super cute. Then we have the Bad Witch Club, which was the Halloween release, not from last year, but from 2021. And also absolutely gorgeous. I mean, it is super pretty, so I will also be including this palette in the same video as the Haunted Pumpkin one because I have not used this one yet either, so I'm very excited to see how they go. And then we have the Pastel Dreams palette, which is very, very pretty, very pastel, and has matching metallic shades for each of the matte shades, which I thought was really, really nice. So you can do either monochromatic looks, or you can mix up the shades however you wanted. So I really enjoyed this, and I was able to create some very nice looks with it. Then from Midas Cosmetics, I was able to pick up two of their liner palettes, and so we have this one that is more of your metallic shades. Very, very nice. And then we also have all of the neons as well as white and black, so you can lighten and darken them up as you choose. I have not used any of the cake liners yet, and so I can't really speak to the quality of them, but I am very excited to try them out because I was wanting to kind of see if I liked it, and since Midas had everything on sale as they were going through their closing down, I just grabbed these, so I'm very interested to see how they work. Then we have from Spoiled Lips Cosmetics, which is an indie brand out of the UK as well. This is the Glamoween palette that they came out with quite a few years ago. It's very interesting color story for the palette, lots of neutral shades and then a few pops of color, and then you have two of the same shimmer shades, the Lucky 13 shade at the bottom, and it's the exact same like highlight shade. So I thought that was very, very interesting, but I don't really use it all that much. The formula wasn't great in my opinion, and so for me, I don't really use it, but I will be keeping it 100% because the packaging is just absolutely awesome, and especially around Halloween time, I will want to display this. Then we have from Estate Beauty, this is their collab with Bailey Sarian, the Venice Fling palette, and I absolutely love Bailey Sarian. Again, I'm huge into true crime, and so I was like, I'm so excited to have this palette. And I think the color story for it being primarily neutral, to have the gold and then the pop of purple, I thought was really nice, because then you can definitely make a little bit more sunset leaning color stories on there for eye looks. So I thought that was nice. I have not actually dipped into the palette yet to see if I like the quality or not, so I will be holding on to it. All right, then we have a couple palettes from BH Cosmetics. This is the Mimosa palette, and again, not a color story that really I gravitate towards. I mean, it's pretty, but I just, it's not one where I'm like, I gotta use this. And so I've found that every single time that I go into my eyeshadow palettes, I see it and then I just move on to something else. And so I think I have not actually used this one yet, and so I am going to end up giving this to a friend that might be able to use it a little bit better than me. Then we have the Blueberry Muffin palette, and this one is definitely a color story that I gravitate towards way more. Has really nice blues in there, almost a little bit violet-y, as well as some really nice neutrals. The metallic shades are very, very pretty, so I definitely gravitate towards this guy, so I will be holding on to this one. Then from Huda Beauty, we have this highlighter palette, but I don't actually use it for highlight at all. I use it for eyeshadows. And so this is one that I grab if I want like a really bright pop of color on my eyes. I will use this guy because the shades are perfect for that. Then we have two palettes from Rude Cosmetics. These are the Spellbook palettes, and we have Love and Lust. And Love is this really beautiful monochromatic kind of teal blue palette. Really love that color story. And then the Lust one is more of your reddish tones, and I have not actually touched either of them. I love the design of these. Like, I love witchy, magical types of things, and so I think I'm not going to declutter either of them. I definitely wouldn't declutter this one no matter what because I really like the color story, but I don't really use either of them at all, and so I think I'm going to keep them for display purposes because I really love the design of it, and then I will just use the product inside for art projects. Then we have the two Shine by SD palettes that were collaborations between Bizza Revolta and M. Jones, and they have some really, really beautiful multi-chromes inside of there. So this is the two palettes, As Above and Below. Very, very nice and pretty, although interestingly enough, I preferred some of their other products a little bit more. I will be keeping these, but I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to remove them from the palette and just put them with the rest of my single shades from Shine by SD so that they aren't taking up room, because the palette design isn't really a design where I'm like, I need to display this. It's fairly basic. And so I think I'm just going to depot them and then put them in with the rest of the singles that I have. Then we have all of my Kaleidos palettes, and there's so many because I absolutely love Kaleidos. So we've got a bunch here. So this is the first one of their kind of longer 6-pan palettes that open like a book. This one's more lilac-y colored and very, very pretty. I will be holding on to all of these, by the way. So we're just going to show the color stories real quick. This is more of a rainbowy palette one that you can't get anymore. This is the Sashimi City one, which is a very neutral palette one, but has duochromes for the shimmers and is very, very nice. And we have this guy. Absolutely love the grungy greens in this guy. Super pretty. And we have this guy, which is absolutely gorgeous. This is a really nice foil silver, and then really beautiful cranberry red shade on there, so love this one. This is probably one of my favorite color stories from Kaleidos. I love the combination of a blue with orange, and so I love this palette. Every single look I have created with this palette has been some of my favorites. And then we have the Astro Pink, which is absolutely beautiful, a little more cool toned leaning neutrals, and then these just absolutely stunning shades to go along with it. Really love it. Then we have the Flower Punk palette, which I gotta be honest, I'm really glad that they did not stick with this particular design for the palette. So you can remove the entire lid and it's just a mirror, and then you have these, and the size of these palettes is very reminiscent to me of Melt Cosmetics, and I just hate the design of this. Like, I like when the pieces stay together, and it's just, this is not one of my favorite palettes from Kaleidos. I don't really grab it all that much, but it's still really nice, and so I will hold on to it because on occasion I will sometimes grab it. Then we have the Escape Pod, which is one of their bigger palettes, and I really love this. I love the bright pops of color. Then we have the Club Nebula palette, which was their collaboration with Angelica Nyquist, and this color story is awesome. I love the deeper tones with like this pop of lime green. The shimmer shades are perfect and they lighten up any of the looks, and so I really, really love this color story. I just talked about both of these. You've got a very nice lilac-y purple one and then a more neutral shade with a duochrome metallic in there, and so they are both really, really gorgeous. And then we have both of these quads, which are also absolutely stunning. You have this really nice one that's more of your grays and silver tones with an absolutely stunning metallic. Definitely more on the foiled side. And then we have a little bit more cool toned neutrals with another very nice foily metallic. Then we have a palette from Too Faced. This is their Sparkling Pineapple Eyeshadow palette. I do like the design with the sparkle on there. I'm a sucker for sparkly gold things. This is the palette on the inside. You actually have a really, really nice kind of foiled metallic in the middle, as well as this duochrome that goes from brown to kind of the silvery green shade. And the matte shades aren't bad either, and so I do on occasion dip into this guy, so I will be holding on to it. Then we have from the crayon case, I grabbed 3 of their monochromatic palettes. They had a whole bunch more, pretty much covering the gamut of the rainbow. So this is the greenish one, and then we also have the yellow, and then we have their neutrals with white through the grayscale. And so I thought they were very pretty. I really liked the concept behind it. I think I'm gonna keep these 2. I'll be honest, like the quality of them was not that great. And so even though I love green, I was not super impressed with it. So I'll probably keep these 2 for like display purposes. And then this guy, I'm just gonna end up saving for artwork, and that's it. And we have a whole bunch more from Juvia's Place. We've got a bunch of different quads. This is the Disco Party quad. Very nice blues and silvery shades. Then we have the Rebel series. I got all 4. We have the mints, absolutely gorgeous. Then we have the grays, also really, really nice. The honey palette, very warm toned. I will say my only critique with this guy is that these 2 were too close in color to me. And so on the lid, you couldn't really tell that there was a difference between the 2. So that was a bit of a wasted shade for me. And then we have the Army palette, really, really nice. I will be holding on to all of these because I very much enjoy Juvia's Place formula. We have the violets. These are all their 6-pan palettes. The Nubian Glow, I absolutely love this color story. It's such a fun yellowish orange color story. The berries, absolutely love this. This shade is so gorgeous. It's such a nice fuchsia. Then we have the nudes, which is your lighter tones. And I will say that that's very, very light, but if you get the nudes combined with the chocolates, that is usually how I will end up using these palettes, is I will combine these 2, because then I have all of the lighter shades as well as the darker shades that go together really, really nicely. And then we have the sweet pinks, which is your even brighter pops of pink, and this one is just a really fun palette, so I will be holding on to all of these. Then we have 3 collections from Unique Beauty. This is the Fashion Festive collection, which has 3 palettes inside here for the holidays. You have your fall palette, and all of the designs on here, they're meant to look like magazine covers, and it is just so cute, the artwork on there, and then the back of it. And then inside, you'll always have like a tiny little design in the cover, and then the shades are absolutely gorgeous. So Unique Beauty is out of the UK as well, and so stunning. I just absolutely love these. So anytime they release a new collection, if the color stories are ones that I really like, I will always pick it up because it is so nice. This one is their more Halloween design. Look at that color story, absolutely gorgeous. And then this was the Christmassy one, really cute design on there. And then that is your Christmassy palette. So this one is the Summer Limited Edition Fashion one, and all 3 of these palettes are super cute. All the bright colors on this one. Girls Trip one with all of the different locations around the world. Absolutely gorgeous. And then the Friday Night Life one, really nice with the cityscape design, and this color story is definitely one of my favorites. And then the final collection, this was the Spring Cleaning collection. We have a Bubble Time palette. Love this palette. You've got 2 duochrome, really 3, because this guy is probably a duochrome too. This guy is definitely more of a foil. Pamper Me one, also super cute, very spa design. Beautiful color on that one. Again, Me, Myself, and I. Also really pretty color story. Then we have from Glamlight a couple palettes. We have the Ice Cream Shop one, really nice pastel palette. The Michaela palette, this was her first collab with Glamlight. I really love the diamonds just rolling around. Hello, Rogie, coming in for a quick hello. And I know she had a second release with them with a lot more green tones, which normally you would think, oh, Kat's totally gonna grab that. I don't know what it was. I wasn't hugely impressed, but this color story I absolutely love, especially these bottom 2 rows, just really scream my name. I love the combo of yellow and purple, and then these greens and blues were really, really nice. Definitely going to be holding on to both of those. Then we have my Blend Bunny palettes. We've got the Dollhouse, which made it into my top 10 for neutral palettes. Really like this one. I haven't dipped into it a ton yet, but I love the range of these and that it's not just a basic neutral palette. And then we have the Surge palette. This color story is perfection. I mean, to me, you can't get any better than this. I absolutely love it. And then we have the Original Blends palette, which is a really nice rainbow palette. It is all matte shades, and so it is really, really great if you are wanting to work on your blending skills. And so I think it's an awesome one to try out, learn color theory, how to put different shades together. So definitely keeping all of those. And then the last palette from the bottom drawer is going to be from Cara Beauty. This is a duo palette and has lots of rainbow tones on there. I have not really used this. I had two palettes. I had this one and then one that was like in a pink cover that was very similar, and I decluttered that one in my last declutter. I don't really grab this one either, so I think I'm going to declutter this one as well and give it to a friend because I haven't really grabbed it. All right, next up, we got the top drawer here. Whole bunch more brands. So we're gonna go ahead and empty that out and then get started. All right, next up we've got all of these guys. So this is from Peachy Queen. This is their like office building palette, but I thought it was hilarious because it just had all of these things on here with the different names that were just super duper funny. So I think it was that's what she said is the name of the palette, which very much matched my humor, but I don't actually reach for this palette really at all. And so I think I am going to end up decluttering this one just because I don't really need it, and so it's going away. Then we have from Cursed Cosmetics, this is the spell book, and I really love the design of the palette. Again, I love kind of more magical, witchy things, and I love that on the inside it has this really cool spell poem in there. And I will say that the quality of the shades is not the best. They were all right. The color story is also only okay. It's not a palette that I really ever reach for, and so I'm probably not going to continue to use it. It will be kept though because I love it for display purposes. Then we have from For Art's Sake. This is a really beautiful color story, but again, I felt that the quality of the shadows was mediocre at best. And so I have other palettes that have this color story that I use way, way more. So I think this one I am just going to declutter completely. Then we have another palette from Ace Beauté. This is the Vintage Dawn. And it is a beautiful color story if you're wanting to create another sunset look. A lot of earthy tones in here. I haven't touched on this one too much yet, but I really, really love the color story. And again, I love the formula from Ace Beauté, so I will be holding on to this guy. And then the final Ace Beauté palette I have is the Paradise Fallen one. It is a beautiful, beautiful, darker purple palette. You also have a row of cool toned neutrals as well, and I really like this palette. I think the formula is great, the color story is awesome, so I will be holding on to this as well. Then we have from Notoriously Morbid 3 palettes. I have the Rip My Effing Heart Out, which was one of their Valentine's Day releases. They have some really, really cool multi-chrome palettes that they release. Matte shades are also very nice, but I primarily get Notoriously Morbid for their shimmer shades. The formula is really, really good. Then we have the Absinthe and Lace palette, which, check this out. I mean, oh my goodness. All of the bright pops of neon, some really nice metallic shades. As soon as I saw this palette come out, I was like, I'm getting it. Then we have the Et Tu palette, which was a bit more pastel-y in nature, but kind of grungy at the same time. You've got some really nice light pastels, but then it gets deeper as we go along. Again, the shimmer's really, really nice. Matte shades worked out great. I will say that the shimmer formula from Notoriously Morbid is a little bit more crumbly, which is part of why the palettes get like this. But the formula is great for actually on the eyes, and so I highly recommend. Then we have Saints, Angels, and Sinners. This is my entire collection from them. I will only be keeping one of these palettes. Everything else I will be decluttering. I will keep the one that Smink did as a collab, just because I love Smink very, very much, and so I will keep that. But everything else is going to be decluttered, and even this one, I'm not going to be displaying it at all. I will just be using it for like artwork types of stuff, but you'll never see it in my collection again. I just don't support the brand and the behavior of the brand, so these are going away. Same thing for Gourmand Girls. I will not be supporting them anymore either, and so all of these are going to be decluttered. The only exception to that will also be the Time of Year palette, because it was a collab between 3 friends of mine and I absolutely love them, and so until they have collabs with another brand, I will hold on to this just because of my support for them and that I love that they had that opportunity, but I will be decluttering everything else from the brand. Then we get into Menagerie Cosmetics. On a more positive note, we have a whole bunch of them. I just swatched everything, so I'm not going to get too much into it because there's a whole video on all of the palettes, but we've got the Violet Ink, absolutely love it, very lilac-y. The Sugar High palette, really gorgeous, love the metallics in this. The Serenity palette, absolutely stunning, really bright colors. Indigo Ink, one of my favorite palettes. I love this color story, it's so gorgeous. Duo and multi-chromes in this palette. The Flight Club, more of your warm toned purples. And then the Whale Song, all of your grungy greens and blues. Definitely holding on to everything from Menagerie. All right, now we're gonna get into the 4th drawer, which is all of my smaller, kind of more square shaped and just very tiny palettes. So we're gonna pull all of that out and jump right into it next. All right, here we go. So first up is the final palette that I have from Notoriously Morbid. This is a small quad that I got in their Halloween advent calendar that they do. Really enjoy this one, definitely keeping it. Then we have from House Labs. I have 3 of their quads and they're very pretty. Like, I don't really have any issues with the color stories. They are very nice looking. I just, for whatever reason, haven't really tried to grab any of them for any eye looks, which is weird because, I mean, the color stories are very pretty. And so I think I'm going to give them a little bit more of a chance, see how they do. They do look very nice, and so I'm just gonna hold on to them for a little bit longer, give them another go. Then we have from Too Faced, this is one of their puppy palettes. They also have a bronzer and a highlighter that also have the little puppy head on there, and so I don't really gravitate towards this particular color story at all, but I absolutely love this guy, and so I will be keeping it for display purposes because I will have all 3 of the puppy heads together on a shelf because they're super cute. Then we have Makeup by Mario. This is one of his quads. There were a whole bunch of different color stories. This one is like gold and silver with some really nice blues, and I absolutely love it, so I will definitely hold on to that. Then we have 2 e.l.f. quads, and I will definitely be keeping both of them. I like the color stories. There's a really nice kind of more periwinkle palette, and then your grungy greens with a pop of gold, and I like both of them. I'll be holding on to them. Then we have from Tez Luce, I Am Alma, and this particular palette, it is very cute, but I don't really reach for it at all, and so I haven't used it yet, so I think I'm just going to declutter it and see if a friend would rather have it. Then we have a couple palettes from Sugar Drizzle. This one is all of their topper iridescent shades. If I can get it open, there we go. I mean, look at how pretty these are. They're very nice topper shades, so definitely keeping this guy. And then I also have this 9-pan palette. These are metallic, kind of duo and multi-chrome cake liners. And so very excited to try these out. I have not dipped into it yet, but I am super duper excited to try them out. Then we have a few from Makeup Revolution, and this is from their water, air, fire, and earth collections that they had. So this is the air one. I thought that this was a really nice color story. I'm not really a huge fan of the Makeup Revolution formula, and so I don't really use them. I just primarily got these palettes because I liked the design on them. This is one from the Lion King collab, and this one is from the Joker Suicide Squad collab. So none of these are ones where I'm like, I would definitely use them, but I really like the designs for display purposes. So I think I'm going to put this with the Cursed Cosmetics palette and the other ones that I have set aside just for display. Then we have from Visi Art. This is one of their little petite palettes, and this is an 8-pan palette. I do really like the color story. The yellows and purples are very beautiful, but I never really use this palette, and so I think I'm gonna hold on to it for one final round to see if I do dip into it, and if I don't, this will get decluttered in the next one. Then this one is from Kuraiso Monogatari, and I got this one in one of my subscription boxes that I had for a little bit that was coming from Korea. And it's very, very pretty. I have not used it yet. It's just kind of a little bit too neutral of a palette for me, and so I think I'm gonna end up decluttering this and see if a friend might like to have it. Then we have from Colored Rain. It's a very nice color story, but not one that I really gravitate towards at all, and so I think, again, this one I haven't touched at all, and I've had it for like well over 2 declutters already, and I've just kept it but haven't touched it, so I think I'm going to declutter and see if a friend would like it. Then we have from Artist Couture, this is the Ethereal Bloom palette, and even though the color story is one that, like, I like the really bright pops of color, but when I look at this color story, there's not really a ton that immediately pops out to me that I would like, but I absolutely love the design and the color story of this. So I think what I'm gonna end up doing is keep this for display purposes, and it was also a gift from a friend, and so I don't really wanna get rid of it because I really appreciated them giving this to me. So I'm going to hold on to it to display and then probably use the shades inside for artwork. Then we have from Dose of Colors. This is an absolutely gorgeous palette. This shimmer is so, so nice and kind of a little bit more terracotta-y neutral shades. Then you have this really beautiful, look at that sparkle on that black shade. It's like a holographic sparkle mixed in with it. And it's just so, so fun. I have not actually touched it yet. This guy broke. That's the only reason why it's a little bit messy on there, so I've repressed it. But I am very excited to try this guy out and see how much I like it. And along with that, we have several more from Dose of Colors. We have the Snow Angels palette. All matte shades, but very, very pretty shades. You can definitely do a lot of different style of looks on there. But for me personally, it's not something that I've really gravitated towards at all, and so I think I'm gonna see if maybe a friend would like to have it instead. Then we have the Cutting Edge palette, which is your grunges. I am definitely holding on to this guy. It's such a pretty color story. And then we have the Smoky Soiree, which I will also be holding on to. I mean, these metallics look really, really gorgeous, and the matte shades are really nice tones that you can mix with the shimmers, so I will definitely be holding on to it. And then the Sassy Siennas is, again, all matte shades, much more of your terracotta shades, and initially when I was looking at it, I thought I would really like it, but I never ended up really dipping into it at all. And so I think this one I'm going to do the same, that I'm going to see if maybe a friend would like to have it. Then we have one more from Rude Cosmetics. This is the Party Animals palette. Super cute with the little pig design on there. And then this is the inside, and it is a very cute color story. I haven't touched it yet, and I think I am going to declutter it and see if a friend might like to have it. Then we have from Sample Beauty, this is the Hydrographic palette, and the color story is the main reason why I got it, but I never really ended up dipping into it at all because, again, this color story is one that I have a lot more of, and especially given that the 3 metallics that it has in here, they look very much more like satins rather than metallics. I don't really gravitate towards it, and so I think I'm going to see if a friend might like to have it instead. Then we have one more from ColourPop. This is the Just a Glitch palette, and I really liked this, even though it's very, very pastel-y. I thought it looked super, super cute. I love the purples to the mint greens. I think that's a really cute color combo, and then having this really nice light iridescent that has like ever so slight a little bit of a hint of green in it. I thought it was just really cute, so I'm definitely going to hold on to this guy. Then we have from Dominique Cosmetics. This is just an all matte palette, very nice kind of neutral shades, and I used to use this a whole lot more, but I found that I haven't grabbed it in forever. But while I was in Germany, I used it a lot as like my base transition shades, and I do my makeup differently now, so I don't really use this at all anymore, but it has a lot of sentimental value for me because it was when I was first starting out with makeup. This is one of the first palettes that I got, and so I think I'm gonna keep it and have it like for display purposes because it's also really cute with like the sweater design underneath, but I'm probably not really going to be using it all that much anymore. Then we have 2 palettes from Suva Beauty. These are their water activated liners, and we have one that is very Halloween-y shades, really, really cool. And then we have one that is all of their neon shades, and both of them are ones that are UV activated, and so I'm very excited about that. I've already used a couple of the shades in here and they did work really well, so I'm definitely holding on to all of these as I try to work on my eyeliner game. Then we have 2 palettes from P. Louise. This one came in the advent calendar that I had gotten. It's an absolutely gorgeous lilac quad. Really, really nice. P. Louise is one of my favorite formulas, so I will never be getting rid of these. Then we also have the Stack 'em Up palette. Look at how gorgeous these blues are. I mean, just absolutely gorgeous. So definitely holding on to both of these. Then from Violet Voss, we have 2 palettes. We have the Forget Me Not, which again, this color story is a very nice one, going from like the teals and the blues into kind of an orange, but I don't grab it at all, because even though I love this color story, I have other palettes that I would grab more. And so I haven't touched this one yet, so I think I'm gonna declutter it and see if a friend might like to have it. And then we also have the Olive You Forever palette, and this one was kind of disappointing to me. I expected it to be way more greens, and there's 2. And so, I mean, it's pretty, but again, I've never touched it, and so I think I'm going to declutter this one as well and see if a friend might like to have it. Then we have 2 of these stacks from Kaja, and this one is their more grungy yellowish mustardy shades, and you've got 3 different shades in there. It's usually 1 lighter and 1 darker matte shade that are the top and the bottom. And then you've got in the center is going to be your shimmer shade. I will definitely be holding on to both of these. This one has the shimmer on top and then has the lighter and darker shades in the middle and bottom. And so I will be keeping both of these. All right, then we have a whole bunch more from Natasha Denona. These are all of her smaller 5-pan palettes. This was the first 5-pan palette that I picked up from her. Very neutral with like a pop of gold and a pop of green. Again, this is that same duochrome that's like brown to silverish green. And you can definitely tell I've dipped into it a decent amount. I really like the shimmers in this one and the neutral tones. It's a really great travel palette for me, so I'll be holding on to it for that. And then we've got this guy, which is a lot of cool tone neutrals. I haven't dipped into it yet, but I am definitely planning on it because I really enjoy this color story. I think it's very beautiful. And then we have this guy, which is absolutely awesome. It's a really fun navy kind of shade. And then you've got this really cool kind of minty tone with like ever so slight leaning towards blue, and then this really nice yellow, and then a couple more neutral shades. But I really like this color story as well, so I'll definitely be holding on to it. And then we have these 2 guys. This one I have not actually touched yet, and so I think I'm gonna see if a friend would like to have it. Possibly also this one, but I have used this one a couple times, and so we'll see. But I just, again, don't really gravitate towards warm toned neutrals and reddish tones all that much, and so I think I'm going to see if someone else might like to have them. Then we have from Nomad Cosmetics, this was their Studio 54 quad, and I'm not a huge fan of this. If you saw my ranking video from Nomad, this was the bottom one. I just felt like for whatever reason these duochromes didn't really work all that well for me, and so I will be decluttering this one this time. All right, then we have one from one of the Makeup Revolution offshoot brands. This is I Heart Revolution, and it's from their cookie collection, and it's this really kind of soft, squishy, foamy type of top. And then inside you've got this color story, which is kind of cute. A few purplish shades, a few pinks, a yellow, and then some neutral tones. But again, I'm not a huge fan of the color story. The main reason why I kept it is because I like the squishy thing for like stress relief, I guess. But I have other palettes that I can use for that, so I think I am finally going to declutter this guy and just get rid of it. All right, then we have all of my quads from Copacetic Cosmetics. And I have done a video ranking all of these. I do have some new ones coming in for you guys. These are the quads that you can get from their Convert subscription box. They had stopped doing it last year, but they have now brought it back for this year. So starting in January at the end of the month, I am going to have the subscription back. We will do unboxings together. So I'm very, very excited about that. And so I will just real quickly show you guys them because I have already done a video swatching and ranking all of them for you guys. So I'm not going to spend too much time on that, but you can see just absolutely gorgeous color stories on here. Lots of different formulas. This guy did have a little bit of an accident. I need to repress him. But I love Copacetic's formula. It is so, so good. And so I will never be getting rid of any of these. And I do kind of like having them in quads rather than just like putting them in my singles collection, because I do have a very large copacetic singles collection for shadows. But I kind of like having the quads as well. I think they're really cute. The Hustle one is like all of these metallics that are really cute. And then you've just got all of these greens and bright colors. The foil in this one is absolutely stunning. So yeah, if you want to see these more in depth rather than this super quick me flipping through them, I will link somewhere around here my video that I had done showing all of them, swatching and ranking them. Then we have the rest of my Odin's Eye collection. These are their smaller palettes that they've got from the Alba 2 collection. They're all 6-pan in that like you've got a split pan in the middle, and I really enjoyed these. I thought it was such a cute idea, and I thought the color stories were really, really pretty. The only thing is, like, with those split pans, you have to be so much more careful that you're not like accidentally combining them. These were from the Norn collection, and so that's why there's a little bit of a different design on the front of them. And the Erd palette is by far my favorite of all of them. It is these absolutely gorgeous grungy greens, and just, I absolutely love it. Like, as far as grunge palettes go, this one was done so well. This deep chocolate brown, perfection with it. And this is the last one. Very, very nice palette. So I will definitely be holding on to all of these as well. Then we have 2 of the new Shadow Block palettes that Maybelline had come out with. They're very similar to the Kaja bento boxes in that there's 3 of them, and you've got a lighter and darker matte shade and then shimmer in there. So I grabbed this kind of purple one and then this like greenish one, and they're okay, but they're definitely not ones that I would really grab all that much. And so I think the lilac one I'm definitely going to get rid of. I'll hold on to the evergreen one, see if I use that a little bit more. But this guy, I can definitely see if maybe a friend would like to have it. Alright, then we have all of my sigil-inspired Tammy Tanuka palettes. I am devastated that I cannot get these anymore right now. They've had so many more beautiful palettes that have come out, and it's been so sad because since they're in Russia, you can't get them anymore, which is just really sad. But I absolutely love all of the ones that I have. The quality of these palettes is so nice. The packaging is just this really nice kind of material. All of the palettes are magnetic. You can get them in different sizes too. And so this is a tiny little one that I got of the reindeer one, which is really cute. I love this pop of this duochrome that's like purple to pink, and then these grungy green tones with it. It was just really beautiful. Then you have the Fish palette, which is a full-size one, so you can definitely see the difference in size between the normal size and then the little ones. This is the palette size difference. And so if you know you're not going to make it through a full-size palette, it's really nice that you can get these minis and still try out all of the shades. And this blue palette is absolutely gorgeous. I love it. Then we have the Chinchilla palette, which definitely is one of my favorite purple palettes. I love the silver tones and the cool tone nature of 5 of the shades. They are just absolutely gorgeous. The Snake palette is one of my favorite green palettes. I mean, just look at that. This guy is absolute insanity with how gorgeous of a shade it is. I definitely did a video on these at the beginning of last year, and oh, so nice. And along with that, the Toad palette, very similar, very grungy tones. You've got this really nice brassy shade, so pretty. Then we have 2 of these longer palettes, and this one is all of their iridescence. So again, very similar to the Sugar Drizzle one that's all iridescence. This guy is also, you can kind of slightly see the color changes on there, but as you would layer them as topper shades, you would really see those pigments come out. But it is so beautiful. And then we have this guy, which is like my dream grunge palette. I mean, these teal bluish shades. This guy is like a navy with some gold sparkle on top. Absolutely gorgeous, and it's all cool toned. Really love this palette. And then we have these 2, which are their bigger books. You have the Flaming Gold palette, which, oh, it's so pretty. This is a gorgeous fiery multi-chrome. So stunning. And then you've also got the Wind Rose, Grand Journey North-South. I mean, look at this palette. All cool toned, absolutely stunning multi-chromes in here, duochromes, regular metallics, matte shades, iridescence. This palette has everything. It is so, so beautiful. And so I am planning at some point in the near future to do a ranking video of all of my Tammy Tenuka palettes, so that way you guys can see all of them, get swatches of everything. And so yeah, I'm very excited for that, but I will forever hold on to these. Then we have the rest of my quads from Copacetic Cosmetics. These are all the blush and highlighter palettes. I did do a video ranking all of them, so again, I'm not going to show them off too much, but these are all of them, and so I will make sure that I link that video as well above so you guys can see inside each of them, as well as an eye look that I had created using them, but they are absolutely gorgeous and so, so worth it. Then we have from Storybrooke Cosmetics, this is the Fairy Tales palette. It's very nice grungy greenish with gold, and I don't really dip into it all that much at all, just because I have other palettes that I prefer, and this one is definitely one that I would want to keep just as a display, because it's literally like a book about Robin Hood, and so I am going to keep this one for that. Then we have the rest of my Huda Beauty palettes. These are all of their smaller 9-pan ones. We have the Emerald Obsessions palette, really nice green to gold color story. And again, you can see this color story versus the Storybrooke one, very, very similar vibes, but I would dip into this far more than I would dip into that. And so I really enjoyed this one. And again, ever since I found the Milk Primer for my eyeshadow base, these are no problem for me at all. Then we have the Ruby Obsessions one, which is very nice, but I don't really use, again, red color stories. And so this guy I have not actually touched yet, so I will be seeing if a friend would like to have it. Then we have all of the pastel palettes. We've got the mint one, very, very pretty. Lilac, also very, very nice. And then rose, I thought it was really nice that they actually added in these pops of yellow. I thought that was a very pretty idea, and so I really like this one. Then we have a couple of the wild palettes. I've got the Jaguar, love how grungy this color story is. And then we have the Python palette, definitely more colorful, but also really, really fun to use. Then I got one of the Haze palettes. This is the khaki one. Really like the grungy nature of this, even though it is more of a neutral palette. I thought it was still grungy enough that I really like dipping into it. And then we have the Nude Light. They had 3 different versions of the nude palette. There was light, medium, and dark, and I grabbed the light one. Also has a very beautiful pink to gold duochrome in here, this nice purple shimmer, and so lots of really pretty colors. So I'm holding on to all of those. All right, on to the final drawer in here before we move on to the next thing. We have all of these guys. So these are a lot of my slightly bigger palettes, and then a whole bunch of the more square shaped palettes. So let's just jump right in. First up, we've got from Scott Barnes. This is a quote limited edition. It's a mesmerized palette, but I think you can still sometimes get it. And it's really beautiful packaging. Love the little box that it comes in, and it's really, really pretty on the inside. You have a bunch of different formulas for metallic shades. Then from Dominique Cosmetics, we have the Transition palette, and this is an all matte palette, and I really love this because it is something that works with every single skin tone, so I will definitely forever be holding on to this. Then we have from Tati Beauty, this is the volume 1. This is definitely one of my absolute favorite palettes. I love this, even though I'm not a huge fan of neutrals. If I had to make a neutral palette, I would want it to be something like this. I absolutely love it. I also really enjoy her like pressed glitter formula. It is not nearly as dry and gritty as some others. It is very nice and wet and blends in beautifully with everything else. It doesn't go everywhere, and I was devastated when she closed the doors for Tati Beauty because I was really looking forward to seeing what else she was going to come up with. Then we have from Sydney Grace several palettes. I've got the Tiny Marvels, which was a collab between the absolutely beautiful Mel Thompson and Sydney Grace, and I will never get rid of this palette. I don't care if it goes bad or anything like that. I will always hold on to it. I loved Mel Thompson. She was an absolutely amazing YouTuber, absolutely beautiful. Her makeup looks were amazing. Her reviews were awesome, and we lost someone absolutely wonderful, so I will never get rid of this palette. This is the color story inside. It's a beautiful mix of neutral tones and pops of pastels and colors. Then we have the Enduring Love palette from Sydney Grace, and this is a really, really nice, cool toned neutrals palette. Then we have all of my Clarity Cosmetics palettes. We've got the Evil Mermaid palette. This color story was awesome. I love how sparkly their metallic shades are. The Apocalypse palette and the Lily palette I will be doing videos on for you guys. This is just such a gorgeous color story. Every single shade in here is a beautiful specialty shade. And then the Lily palette, this color story is one of my favorite color stories. It is so gorgeous. Then the So Mermazing palette is one that I really, really liked, but you're gonna immediately see a problem. So this is what happened to almost all of the shimmers in here. They dried out to where I can't really breathe near this palette because the whole thing will just go up in dust. And so what I am hoping to do is I'm gonna try out the gel primer that I had gotten from Death and Candy to see if that can work for me to use it, but then at some point I do need to mix it together so that I can repan them and kind of set them back in place. But the problem is, as soon as you start to mix them together with stuff, it can alter the formula to where it doesn't work as well, so I'm a little bit cautious on that. But this is also one of the only palettes I have had where this happened to this extreme. Some of them do dry out a little bit, but I have never had it where 3 separate shimmers were so dried out that they are just dust. So a little bit crazy. Then we have the Cobra palette. Really, really beautiful, grungy story. I mean, we know I love navy greens and golds. Then we have the Magic Lamp, which is really, really nice. I mean, I love the purple and yellow. I had one of my favorite makeup looks that I was able to create using that. And then the final one that I got was the Carnival palette because they were discontinuing it. Really love how bright and colorful all of these different shades are. This guy definitely looks a bit more like a foil, but absolutely love all of these pops of color. And so I don't know if I would necessarily just build a color story from this palette, but they are definitely really nice accent shades to throw in with any other look using some of the other palettes from Clarity. So I'm keeping all of these. Next up, we have a whole lot of Glam Shop palettes. So we've got this guy that's one of the more springtime ones, really, really pretty. Then we have the Camo one, which is just all of the grungy shades. This is another more pastel-y shade, but super bright. That pop of yellow is just crazy how nice it is. This is my favorite of the more pastel-y ones. I mean, I just love this mint green to the yellowish mustardy shades. I love that it comes across as partially grungy while still being very springy-esque. This is their yellow palette. They had several monochromatic ones that they came out with. This is the yellowish one. By far one of my favorite palettes. Then we have the Laguna palette. I love this color story too. The deeper navy shades with some of the lighter teals, and then these fiery red and orange shades. Then you have this guy, which is your brighter green palette, and still very, very grungy, but a lot brighter. You've got this really cool yellow. Then you have this one. This is the more purple monochromatic palette that they had. Love this one. It is definitely more on the warm tone side for purples. And then they have their blue palette. Absolutely gorgeous blue shades. Then we have their peachy palette, which I don't reach for a ton, but I will keep it just because I absolutely love Glam Shop's formula, and so I will not declutter this guy because if I do ever reach for a peachy tone palette, it would be this one. Then we also have the pink rosy one. I do like that it has a lot more of these brighter pops of pink. And then we have the Paprika palette. If you are wanting a fiery red palette, this is the way to go. I love this Tabasco Duochrome. It goes between this like limey yellowish gold into a fiery red shade. It is so, so pretty. I love it. So I will be keeping all of these. Then the final palette that I have from Midas Cosmetics is the Lemonade palette. This is another variation of a yellow palette. Teresa from Teresa is Dead recommended this one. This was her absolute favorite yellow palette, and so I definitely grabbed it when I could when it was restocked. And so I haven't tried it out yet, but I'm very curious to see how this one compares with the yellow palette from Glam Shop. Then we have the Goddess 2 palette. This is from Makeup Maniacs, And I've used this a couple times, but I was very unimpressed with the formula. So even though it's a beautiful green palette and I like the design on the outside, I will just be decluttering this. Then we have from Black Moxie Cosmetics, this is the Boundless Bloom palette, and I absolutely love this. This made it into my top 10 palettes for 2022, so really enjoy this. Then we have from Butter London, this is the Teddy Boy palette, and I like how it opened up like this, kind of like a book, and it's very cool toned neutral shades with like a little bit of some navy undertones in there. I mean, I do love cool toned neutrals if I'm going to use neutrals, but it's not really a palette that I have ever grabbed. I do really like how it's packaged. And I enjoy the vibe of it. It's kind of a preppy vibe, but I just don't know if I'm gonna keep it for one more round. If I don't use it by the next declutter, it's gone. Then we have from Winky Lux, this is the Galaxy Kitten palette, and I love the vibe of the packaging and very cool toned gray to silver palette. And I have also not tried out this guy yet. It is a bit more of what I like to use because it's more gray toned leaning, and so I will hold on to this to give it a try and see how I like it. Then we have the Break the Rules palette from It's Belle Cosmetics. This is the inside of it. Lots of very pretty multi-chromes. I will, however, say I had done a swatch comparison video a while back on this one, along with Adept Cosmetics and a couple other brands, and found that this particular formula was not unique. It was from the same lab as a whole bunch of other brands were using, and so I'm probably not really going to hold on to this as far as using it. I'll probably just end up turning these guys into either watercolors or use them for other art projects. Then we have a couple palettes from Unearthly Cosmetics back when they were Alien Cosmetics. This is the Don't Be Jelly palette. So this palette was definitely a huge surprise for me when I pulled it out, because initially when I was looking at them in like pictures, these four corner shades kept coming across as like either satin or matte shades to me, but they are actually really stunning multi-chromes, and so I will be holding on to this guy. And then we also have the Serenity palette. I love the artwork on the cover for this palette. It's such a cool vibe. And then on the inside, you have quite a few matte shades that are very grungy, as well as several metallic shades, and then a couple duochromes. And so I really like this palette. I will be holding on to it as well. Then we have two palettes from Hank and Henry, and I'm not a huge fan of their formula at all. The Teddy palette looks like this on the inside, and then the Poison palette, a little bit more colorful on the inside, but I absolutely love the artwork on here. And so I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep these for display purposes, but I'm not really going to use them a whole lot. Then we have one more palette from Peachy Queen. This is the Tiffany's palette, and I really liked this color story. I thought it was very pretty, so I'm definitely going to keep this just because I thought it was really cute. Then we have some more Copacetic Cosmetics palettes. So we've got the Companion palette, which is 9 different versions of shimmer shades. You've got several of their like flaky glitters, and then you've got several metallics, some duochrome shifts, some of their more chunky, some of their more soft. So there's just a whole bunch of different formulas in here. The Elysian palette, I really loved this. It definitely looks like Northern Lights to me. I love the formula of these iridescent shades, and I love how bright yet grungy the matte shades are. The Butterfly Kisses palette is an absolutely gorgeous purple palette. I really love it. You've got 2 of the flaky glitters, quite a few metallics that are really beautiful, some of them very duochromy. The Thin Ice palette is more of a blue monochromatic. There are no pressed glitters in this one. It is all different metallics, and then 3 matte shades that are a light and then 2 darker shades. Very beautiful. Then you have the Streamside palette, which was a collab between Rocky and Copacetic Cosmetics. So Rocky came up with the color story on here. It's really pretty. Love this gold shade. The silver is really beautiful, and then you have a bunch of really interesting matte shades along with it. And then the final one, this was their Anniversary palette, which was essentially the 12 shades that were Olivia's favorite shades. She put it all together. So you have a couple pressed glitters, you also have some flakies, metallics, a matte shade that's a really pretty lavender shade, and so this whole thing was for their anniversary, and I will be holding on to all of these. Next up, we have all of my palettes from Nomad. I will not get into too much detail on them because I had also done a ranking video recently for all of those palettes, so I will be keeping all of them except I think Honestly, so I think out of all of them, I'm going to declutter these two. This one is a very neutral palette, and I don't really reach for it at all. And this one, again, I have this color story quite a bit. And so I think I'm just going to declutter both of these guys, see if another friend might like them, because I haven't used them so much to where like I wouldn't want to pass it off. I think they're still in really good condition, so I'm going to see if a friend might like to have them. And then these two guys I'm just going to have as displays, because this particular color story is not one that I really gravitate towards all that much. And then this guy is just a rainbow palette, but I love the packaging for it, so I definitely am going to have both of these guys as displays. All of the other palettes I will 100% be keeping. We'll just do a quick flash of each of the color stories. This is the Hudson Valley one. This is the Land of Fire and Ice, American Parks, Cartagena, Berlin Underground, Whistler Snow Lodge, the Provence palette. The Monteverde one is one of the ones where I'm keeping the exterior packaging because I really, really enjoy it. And so I will be using this guy still, but it's also going to be on display because I love the packaging. Absolutely gorgeous. The Haunted Europe, same thing. I love the exterior packaging. I do think the interior packaging is also really cool with the kind of switching of the design on there, but I love this vibe. It's like an old painting. This is the inside. Then we have the Paradise palette, and we have this guy, which is no longer available, but I will be keeping all of these. Then we move on to my P. Louise palettes. We have the Watch the Queen Conquer, which made it into my favorites for 2022. It is a dual-sided palette, very, very beautiful. The Timeless Treasures was one of the palettes that I got in the advent calendar. Really, really nice neutral palette. I love all of the variety on there, and their formula is awesome, so I'm definitely fine with having a neutral palette from them. Then we have the Worldy palette, which I absolutely love. Again, this is so cool how this kind of moves back and forth on there like a little sand thing. And then this color story is absolutely gorgeous. I love it so, so much. There's only 3 metallic shades in here. The rest is mattes. But just looking at this, there are 1,000 different looks I could come up with. Then we have the Team Bride palette. It's another neutral palette. I think this one I am going to end up giving to a friend because it's more of the kind of plummy burnt rose color story, and that just is not one that I really need, and so I'm probably just going to give this to a friend. Then I have 2 of their newest palettes that they had come out that are also dual-sided palettes. You open them up like a little journal, which is really cute, and they are both dual-sided. They light up, which is really, really cool. Kind of see how that changes colors on there. This is the more bright color story on here, and that is the Unlock Your Creativity one. The Aligning My Future is the more pastel version of that. So the inside of this guy, it also lights up front, and you can see a little bit more pastel with the color tones, and so I'm very excited to have all of those guys. My ABH Norvina collection palette is, I think it was one of 3 different versions that had this like tinny exterior. This is the color story on the inside. I don't really ever use this. The color story is kind of all over the place, and so even though I really like bright pops of neon colors, it just, for whatever reason, never really was one that I gravitated towards using, and so I think I'm going to declutter this and pass it on to a friend. And then the final palettes that we have in the bottom drawer are going to be all of my Beauty Bay palettes. We have the Dark Fantasy, which I will be showing in an upcoming speed reviews. Very, very beautiful palette, lots of grungy, darker tones. Then we have the Wilderness palette, one of my absolute favorites. I love this palette so, so much. Then we've got the Book of Magic, also absolutely gorgeous color story. Age of Opulence, also really, really nice. I love how it has these darker tones that you could mix with the neutral shades to just have a really beautiful blended look. The Sunset Horizons, such beautiful bright colors. The New Mood is also a newer palette that I picked up. I have not dipped into it yet, but I thought it was very interesting with these shades on here, this pop of magenta, and then having these really nice blues down in this corner. Then I have the Nikki Tutorials collab, which is this guy. Even though the color story itself is not one that I typically gravitate towards, I still love the Beauty Bay formula. It's one of my favorites, and I can easily grab pops from throughout the entire palette. It's still really, really nice to me. Then we have the Jade palette, which is really, really awesome. It's just a massive, massive palette. And so for the cost of it, it was super reasonable. And if you have not picked up a palette from Beauty Bay before and you're wanting to test out their formula, this is just a really great palette to get. It has pretty much every look you would want to create. And then the final one is the Earthy palette, which is just a larger version of the Wilderness palette, and I absolutely love it. It is so gorgeous. So I will be keeping all of these. All right, we are up to this mamma jamma. So first drawer that has eyeshadow palettes is going to be this one. And so let's just jump right in. And these are definitely going to go a lot quicker because as you can see, there's a whole lot less eyeshadow palettes. So we are nearing the end. All right, here we go. First up is going to be a palette from Bobbi Brown that I got a really, really long time ago. It is nice. I do like that it's more cool tone. I'm just not a huge fan of Bobbi Brown as far as their eyeshadow formula goes, and so I don't really use it all that much, but I do want to keep it. I really like this kind of kaleidoscope view of the palette. I think that's really pretty for display purposes, and I can definitely change a lot of these into watercolors or use them for other arts and crafts projects. Then we have from Glamlight the Dirty Martini palette, and I really like the grungy nature of this guy. I think it's super cool. I like the different types of metallic formulas on there. It's really, really pretty, and so I will hold on to this guy. Then we have all of my Adept Cosmetics palettes. We have the Codeine palette, one of my absolute favorites. I love how deep toned everything is on here. The Minka I'll be showing off more soon, but you guys know I already absolutely love this. Top row, all foils except for the two matte shades at the end. Bottom row, all different kinds of metallic shades with multi-chromes, shimmers, like little sparkly holographic shimmers. I mean, I am so excited to show this palette to you guys. Plain Jane was the first one that I had grabbed from them. Really enjoy this. The formula is definitely the same as what the It's Belle Cosmetics formula was, and that's because Adept ended up selling their formula, and so that was how a lot of other brands ended up being able to grab it. They have now since switched to different formulas, and so that's part of why I'm fine with keeping it. I would rather keep the Adept ones than things from other brands where that was what they went to, instead of like with Adept where now they're moving on to bigger and better things. So definitely still gonna hold on to this guy. Same with the Ninhydrin palette. A lot of the old formula that they had for their shimmers. Very, very nice. Still very, very beautiful. I'm just very excited about their new palettes. So the Emunette New is one of the newer ones with the newer formulas. You can see a lot of consistency changes on there. Some of the more chunky metallics, some of the more smooth metallics. You've got a whole lot of different options on here. Holding on to all of those. Then my last palette from Melt is going to be the Mary Jane palette. I do think that this is really cool, the design on there. It stands up, which is really, really neat. And then there's like all these little crystals that are inside there. So I thought that design was really cool. Love how grungy this palette is. This will be one of the ones that I am keeping because this particular palette, I don't know why, but it did work a little better for me and I didn't have the same eye reaction that I had with some of my other Melt palettes, so I will hold on to this guy. Then we have my other Linda Hallberg palette. This is the Spectral palette, and very interesting color story. I didn't really know what to think of it. This silver shade is very, very beautiful. They also have this other really pretty kind of periwinkle purplish blue shimmer, which is very nice. But the color story to me doesn't really, like, nothing jumps out at me as far as like looks to create. And so I don't really know. I think I'm gonna hold on to it for one more declutter, but if I still don't keep grabbing it by then, I'll declutter it. Then we have my last Dose of Colors palette. This is the Ice Cream palette. Very pastel-y with a bunch of neutral shades, and this one definitely doesn't really speak to me at all, and so I think I'm going to declutter it and see if a friend would like it. I have not dipped into it at all, and so it is brand new, so I will pass it on to a friend. Then we have my only Sigma Beauty palette. This is the Enchanted palette, and I love this color story. I think it's super, super pretty. Even though it is a lot of neutral shades, you have some really nice springtime shades. Several of the metallics are really, really pretty, and so I will definitely hold on to this guy. Then we have my entire Sweet Shop collection collection from BH Cosmetics. I think I'm only missing one. I think it's the orange one. But we've got the Sugar Cone palette and the Pistachio, which is definitely one of my favorites. The Cherry on Top, Cotton Candy, love this guy, and the Bubblegum palette. And I don't know what it was with BH Cosmetics formula, but whatever they did for these palettes versus what they do for all of their other palettes, these were real winners for me, and so I absolutely love them. I mean, the Pistachio is definitely my favorite, but I use all of these palettes, and so I will definitely be holding on to them. And then the final palette is from Lele Posh. This is the Goddess palette, and I have not really dipped into it. This guy just was a little bit crumbled upon arrival, and so I pressed it back down. But I have not tested any of this stuff out yet, and so I'm very curious to see what I think of it. I do think it looks really, really beautiful in the pan, and it's got a lot of weight to it, which is very interesting. So I'm curious to see how I end up liking it. This guy definitely looks like a foil to me. I've got some other shades in here that look a little bit duochrome-y, multi-chrome-y. Some others just look like standard metallics, so very, very interesting to see the differences in formulas and how it all looks. All right, we are on to the next row, so let's go ahead and go down to here. Got a whole bunch more very sparkly palettes to look at. All right, next up, we have got all of these guys. These are 3 more Sydney Grace palettes. They were a collab that was done that I thought was absolutely gorgeous. When you put all of these guys together, it creates this really pretty artwork. So I'm definitely, no matter what, going to be displaying this. But this is the artwork that it has on there. It's like waterfall that goes into a moon scene, into like a galaxy. It is just absolutely gorgeous. And all 3 palettes look like this on the inside. I will show them laying together because you are going to notice there are a lot of similarities between the 3. And so I think that's why some people were kind of turned off to it, is that it was a whole lot of money to spend when there are a lot of very similar shades across the 3 palettes that you can see. They do have slight differences. I don't think anything is 100% a dupe for another shade, but lots of similarities across the palettes. I do love Sydney Grace's formula, and so I have no problem keeping them, and I do dip into them, but it was definitely one of the things that I noticed that was a very valid critique, that it was hard to see differences between the 3. All right, next up, we have some more of my Glam Shop palettes. First up, we have the Color Love palette, which is pretty, but I'm not a huge, like, it's not one of the ones that I gravitate towards as far as like color story wise. It just didn't grab me in comparison to some of the other palettes that I have from Glam Shop, and so I think this one I'm going to keep, but I'm probably going to depot the shades and then just put them in with my singles so that I can have a better idea of color stories to create with them. Then we have the Topaz palette, and this one is very beautiful. It has a few very standout shades. This magenta pink and this sparkly blue are absolutely gorgeous. These 2 greens are really, really pretty, and so I really liked a lot of the shades in this color story. But I think with this one, I am going to do a similar thing and depot everything and put it in with my singles. Then we have the Turbina palette, which is absolutely amazing. It was one of the first palettes that I got from Glam Shop that really turned me on to the brand. It is all of their different turbo shades, which is their specialty shimmer formula, and so I'm definitely going to keep this, but I think again I'm going to depot it and put it with my singles, because also these are not particularly expensive packagings, and so I would rather just have it with the rest of my single shades. Then the last 2, we have the Remix palette, which is this guy. Very interesting color stories. Again, I'm probably just going to depan it, even though I do kind of like this smoky, like lots of colors, rainbowy vibe. So maybe I'll keep this one in the palette, unsure, but still really, really enjoy all of the shades. And then this one is the Totally Matte palette, and it's just what it says. It's all matte shades. And so this one I am definitely going to depot and put in with my single shades so that I can see all of the matte shades that I have available, and I can mix them nicely with the shimmer shades that I've got. Then we have from Urban Decay the 3 palettes that I have. First one up is the Honey palette, and I do really like this one. I like the yellow tones of it, even though it's very warm toned neutrals. I do kind of like that they're more yellow leaning, and so I'm definitely gonna hold on to this guy. I do like the formula, and so yeah, I'm gonna keep it. I think it's a very pretty palette. Then we also have the Cyber palette. This one I had picked up because I wanted to see how the duochromes were in comparison to some of the indie brands. I can 100% assure you they are not as good. And so this guy, I think, I don't know, I like the packaging, and so I might just keep it for display purposes because I do think it's really cool. And then I'll probably just take the rest of these shades and turn them into watercolors. And then the final one up is the Ultraviolet. I also really enjoy the packaging on this one, so no matter what, I would keep it because I would want to display it. But then I actually really enjoy the color story in here as well. I love this half of the palette. This mint shade is very pretty, and then the neutrals aren't bad either. They are very nice to pair with these colors, so I will hold on to these three. And then we have my Anastasia Beverly Hills palettes. The first one up is going to be the Rose Metals palette, and I will be showing this in an upcoming video. It has lots of very interesting metallics. None of them seem like they're really at the level of a foil, but we're still going to take a look at it and see what we think. But it is a very neutral palette, so after I'm done with the comparison, if I'm not a huge fan of it, I already talked with a friend of mine, and they're very interested in having the palette, and so I'll probably just gift it to them. Then we have the Sultry palette. I freaking love this packaging. It's just, you get me. If you do anything with sparkle glitter, I'm gonna want it. It's such, oh, I love it. It's so pretty. And then the inside, I mean, it's pretty much an identical comparison to the Urban Decay remix. It's pretty much the exact same thing as that. It has the pop of coral, and then all of the rest of it is neutral tones, but I prefer the Anastasia Beverly Hills formula to the Urban Decay one, which is why I had decluttered the remix palette, I think a couple declutters ago, and kept this one instead because I do prefer this formula, and I do like that they are cool toned, and so it's not a bad neutral palette, so I will hold on to it because especially with this, you get me. Then I have the Carly Babel palette, and I do also really like this one. It's a little bit reminiscent of the Enchanted palette from Sigma for me, as far as like it gives off very springtime vibes, even though the color story is nothing like the Enchanted palette, because that one has a whole lot of greens and everything, and there's not a single green in this one. I do really like some of the shades. I think that this kind of darker holographic shade is very nifty, and again, I like the Anastasia Beverly Hills formula, so I'm gonna hold on to this guy. This stuff is a little bit weird for me having this design on there, and so I probably wouldn't display this one just because I am someone that has a little bit of trypophobia, and so this kind of freaks me out a little bit. Then I have the Norvina palette, which is also a very nice springtime formula. This bottom row right here is almost identical to the other palette from Dominique Cosmetics that was that sweater one that I had showed earlier, and that's also part of why I'm fine with decluttering that one, because I have those shades in here instead, and then I have shimmers and metallics to go along with it. So definitely holding on to this guy too, because I like the velvet. Then we have the Riviera palette. Love this one. I love the bright colors. The shimmers are absolutely gorgeous. This mermaid one is stunning. I love this guy that's kind of one of those that has like the navy base to it with a little bit of like a goldish silver on top. So really like this palette, definitely holding on to it. And we have the Jackie Aina palette. I mean, first off, I absolutely love the like iridescent look of the palette, and then inside, very loved. I mean, this is one of the first, I think this was actually the first Anastasia palette that I picked up, and I used to love using this while I was in Germany, and so no matter what, I would keep it for nostalgia's sake. Oh, you're gonna come hang out with me? Good girl. Use me. The final one that we have is the Amrezy palette. Again, very sparkly, just with pink instead of that coppery shade. And I really like this palette as well. Lots of fun colors, deeper neutral shades, and there are 2 pressed glitters in here. I don't really use those a ton, but I like all of the other metallic shades that are included, and so I will be holding on to this guy as well. All right, we are down to the final 3 drawers. So here we go with the next one up. It's going to be this guy. Let's go ahead and grab all of those and jump right in. Okay, next up we have a few from Makeup Revolution again. I do love the little doggos on top of here, so no matter what, I'll keep it for like display purposes. But again, I'm not a huge fan of the formula. I hate when they're super hard to open, and this color story is not one that like, I particularly need or gravitate towards, and so I think I will just keep it for display purposes because of the doggos on the front. Then we have this guy, which is more of a monochromatic blue palette, and I do really like this color story, but again, I'm not a huge fan of the formula, and so I think it is time that I will end up decluttering this guy. This is the last of the Rival Loves Me palettes that I have, which is a brand that you can get in Germany at the drugstores. It's a nude palette. It's all cool toned nudes. As you can see, definitely more gray leaning. The formula is not awesome. It's definitely very, very cheap, and it's not like hidden gem amongst the drugstore brands type of deal. It's just not great. You are getting what you're paying for, but I'm hesitant to get rid of it just because I do miss my time while I was in Germany, and this is like one of the only drugstore palettes that I have from Germany, and so I'm kind of like, do I really want to get rid of it? I think I'm going to hold on to it for one more round, and then I'm hoping that I'm going to be able to do a trip to go back to Germany to see family and friends at some point this year, and so maybe I'll pick up something that I'm a little bit more of a fan of, and then I'll declutter it at that point. Then we have the Blood Moon palette from Wednesday Cosmetics, and this silver is definitely one of the best foil silver shades. It is super duper nice. The mattes are good, the satin shades are good. I don't grab it a ton just because I do wish there were a couple lighter shades in here, and the color story also, like, I don't know, it isn't one that like I have to go towards, but the quality is very good. So I think I'm gonna hold on to it, but I might end up depotting it to keep the silver and then maybe a couple of the other shades that I really like. And then the rest of it would go towards something else. Then we have from BoxyCharm, they had made a palette. This is the Hello Charmer palette, and I have not used it yet, so I really don't know how good or not good it is. I can say that the Swipe Up shade and the full size shade look absolutely gorgeous, and so I do want to try them out and see what I think. So I am going to hold on to this guy and remind myself to actually try it. Then we have from LA Girl, this is the Neons palette, and unlike the other LA Girls palette, I'm not a huge fan of this type of setup. It's kind of the same reason why I don't like the way that the Urban Decay palettes are set up. I don't like these longer palettes. I prefer square and circle shaped ones, just because I feel like I like to get in there with my fingers, and I have huge fingers apparently, even though I thought I had small hands, but these make me feel like I have monster-sized hands. So I don't know, but I do like the color story, but I think I'm going to declutter it because a lot of the shades, especially this back half, are very similar to the shades that I have in that other LA Girls palette, so I think that this particular one I am going to declutter. Then we have two palettes from Certify. This is the Affinity 1 and 2 palette. Really, really nice color story on here. It's got a few metallics mixed in with a lot of really beautiful, bold matte shades. And then the other one, the Affinity 1, is your sunset shades, purples, reds, oranges, and yellows. I have not tried them out yet, but I do really want to, and so I will be holding on to these guys. Then we have several Unearthly Cosmetics palettes. I have the So Strange and the Weirdos, which were two of their Halloween palettes that they released, so I will have them in an upcoming video. This is the Weirdos palette, really beautiful. The shimmers look absolutely gorgeous already, and I'm excited for the matte shades. Then for the So Strange palette, that's this guy. This one already looks absolutely stunning to me as far as iridescence go. Let me see if I can you guys see a little bit of like the greens and purplish, like lots of different things going on in that shade. So I am very excited to try these guys out. I had just recently included the All I Ever Wanted palette in my speed reviews, so if you want to see more of that guy, you can check it out in there, but absolutely love this guy. Then we have from Perfect Diary a few more palettes that I have not tried yet. They did a collaboration with Discovery Channel, and so you've got the Deer palette, which, I mean, some of these, like, look at how sparkly some of these guys are. Very interested to see how they go. Then we have the Wolf palette, which is a really nice blue color story. Again, some really unique shimmers in there as well. And then we have the Koi Fish one, which is absolutely beautiful. I love this one, how it has like the actual scales in the palette. So very interested to try these guys out and see how they go. Then my final one from Dominique Cosmetics, this is the Celestial Storm palette. I will be holding on to this guy. It has some really beautiful shades. This is a lovely duochrome. The metallics are all really, really nice. So I will be holding on to this. Then we have a whole bunch from ColourPop. We have the Forest Sight, which was the Raw Beauty Christie palette, and this was gifted to me by a friend of mine, and I will absolutely be holding on to it. I mean, as far as a neutral palette with some pops of color, this is absolutely gorgeous, and so I really, really like this. Definitely holding on to it. Then we have the Sailor Moon collab palette, and I will also be holding on to this guy. I love the cover, how it goes back and forth with her, like, freaking out on there. And then this is the color story inside, which is definitely a little too pastel-y neutral for me, but it is very pretty, and no matter what, I'm gonna keep it because it being Sailor Moon themed. Then we have the Garden Variety palette, which is very, very pretty. I do really enjoy the color story on here, which is actually a very similar color story to the Gather Round Sisters palette, as we'll see here in a minute. It's just more of the pastel version. So I'll leave that open. I'm definitely holding on to the Gather Round Sisters one. I absolutely love the artwork on this palette. It is so, so gorgeous. Everything Hocus Pocus themed. And so you can see this is just kind of like the darker, grungier version of that palette. They look almost identical. It's just very interesting to me, just that this is like the lighter version. And so I will hold on to it because you can very easily pair a lot of them together if you're wanting to create a monochromatic look, because the two palettes together create your entire variety of light to dark shades. Then we have a couple palettes from Pure. This is the Festival palette. I do think it's very pretty. I have not really touched into it yet, but I think I am going to end up giving this to a friend of mine just because it's a really nice palette. I have other palettes that I would gravitate towards more, so I think I'm going to declutter and give it to a friend. Then the other Pure palette, that is the Barbie collab. I love these rocks on top of here and like all of the little beads and everything. It's very, very pretty. And then again, with it being hard to open is my least favorite thing. If I have to worry about breaking a nail, I'm not going to be happy. But I do love the color story on the inside. It's very pretty. This shade is gorgeous. This one is gorgeous. For a pressed glitter, this is also very, very pretty. This black shade has some really cute pink sparkles in it, so I will hold on to this one. Then we have from Cara Beauty the Dreamscape palette. And I do really, really like this one. It has a lot of variety of colors, and they're more unique shades that I don't have as much of. And so I will keep this one. I thought also some of these shades that again have the stripes in them are pretty cool. So I do like this one and I will hold on to it. And the final one is from Too Faced. This is the Pumpkin Spice palette. It does smell spicy, like a little bit cinnamony. It's the only palette from Too Faced that I have that's like in those holiday tins. And so I will hold on to this one since it's the only one that I have gotten. I didn't end up picking up any of the others, and so this will be the one I keep. All right, here we go. Second to last drawer, and so that's going to be this one, which is our Pat McGrath drawer. So let's go ahead and pull everything out. All right, here we go with all of the Pat McGrath palettes. I have done a deep dive where I was swatching all of the shimmer shades quite a while ago, so I'll try and link that as well for you guys, so in case you want to check that out. This is one of their more recent releases. Lots of really beautiful metallic shades in there. I will be featuring this as part of my comparison video on metallic shades, and so very interesting. Very interested to see how that one goes, but definitely holding on to this. We have a bunch of quads. We have this guy, which is absolutely gorgeous, has one of the specialty shades on here, but really, really beautiful. This is the Blitz Astral Quad in Ritualistic Rose. This is the Nocturnal Nirvana Blitz Astral Quad, and it's definitely my favorite. I absolutely love these shades. They are so, so gorgeous. This is the Celestial Divinity in Risque Rose. Also very, very pretty. This is a very beautiful chunky shimmer. Really like that hot pink. And this is the Celestial Divinity in Interstellar Icon. This is a really beautiful duochrome from blue to purple. And this was the first of like the bigger palettes that they released, the Celestial Divinity palette. This is all of the shades in there. I do think it's very pretty, but it's nothing that's like crazy unique as far as I'm concerned. We see that same duochrome with the brown to silver green, lots of your standard neutral shades, some similar purples, and so it's nothing that really stands out to me, but I will keep it because it's the only one that I have that's of the bigger ones. But I have been a lot more cautious about getting the big ones since this released, just because I wasn't super like impressed with it. And then we have all of the rest of the Mothership palettes right here, so we will run through those real quick. So this is the Mothership 1, really, really beautiful. Love that gold shade on there. Mothership 2 is your blues. I absolutely love this blue shade. It is so, so gorgeous. I love how cool toned the neutral shades are in this palette. This is the 3. This green shade is one of my absolute favorites. I love it so, so much. This is the Mothership 5. The red shade is really beautiful. This is where we're starting to get into quite a few more of the unique shades. This one is a really nice, unique iridescent. These two are a lot more of your like foily types of metallics. This is the 7, the Divine Rose 1. Really nice, but definitely more on the neutral side. This is the Divine Rose 2. So this is where she started to incorporate multi-chromes. So you have this one multi-chrome right here. And then these other 3 are very beautiful shades as well. And then we have the Mothership 9, which is the Utopian Dream. And again, this is where she's incorporating some more duo and multi-chromes, some more of your, a bit more flaky shimmers on there as well. So really, really nice and pretty. No matter what, even if I wasn't a huge fan of these, I would still keep them because they were so expensive and the packaging is really, really nice, and so I will hold on to them no matter what. And we have made it to the final drawer. So here it is, and let's just get down to business. There they are, the final group. First up, Makeup by Mario. This is his Metals palette. I absolutely love this. This is by far some of the best foil shades I've ever come across, and so I will probably never get rid of this. Then we have 2 palettes from Aether Beauty. The first one is this guy, also very reminiscent of the Remix palette from Urban Decay and the Sultry palette from Anastasia Beverly Hills. Very neutral palette with one pop of kind of melony red, and so that's kind of interesting. I do find the packaging to be very unique, this kind of like box thing. And then we also have this guy, which is a lot of your purples, blues, greens. I have not tried out the Aether palettes yet, and so I think I'm going to keep them for a little bit, give them a try, see if I like the formula. I mean, I definitely like the packaging. It's super unique, and so it feels very nice in the hand, and so I kind of like that. So I'm gonna hold on to them, see what I think. Then from Wander Beauty, we have the Wanderess Escape, and nothing too crazy about this one. It's just a neutral palette with a pop of blue, but the shimmer shades on here, these metallics, do look very interesting to me. And so I have not tried it out yet, but I definitely want to give it a try because some of them do look very, very nice. And so I'm having high hopes for how it's going to turn out. Then we have from Il Makiage 2 palettes. There was a collaboration that they did with Rico Nasty, and I love the design of these palettes. How it has that skull that's kind of a tattoo design with like a little bit of ink splatter on there. I love that design. This one is your bright pops of color that we have on there. Everything in here looks like it's primarily going to be satin rather than straight on metallic, and this one is a matte shade. So very, very interesting. I don't know yet what I will think about it. I haven't tried them. The black one out of the 2 is the most gorgeous packaging. I love that vibe. And it's very neutral on the inside, again with 8 different types of metallic shades, several of them looking a bit more satiny than metallic. But there are several, like this guy definitely looks metallic, these 2 look metallic, these 2 and that one look a little more satiny to me, and then you got 4 matte shades at the bottom. So I am very interested to see how they end up going. I have not touched them yet, and I've had them for like a year and a half now, and so I'm kind of like, I need to get on it. And so if I don't, then probably in the next declutter, I will end up decluttering them from my collection, but I still feel like I'll want to keep them for display purposes because I just love the design on the cover. Then we have the last of the Too Faced palettes that I have. These were all holiday release palettes. They're super cute with the little animals on top. Like, look at the little raccoon. This is it on the inside. It's a very standard neutral palette, 2 complexion products on there, more blushy, and then I think this is supposed to be a highlighter. And then we have a swan one, which looks like this on the inside, a little bit more pinky with the neutrals. And then we have the deer one, which is the most stand out of all 3 of them. You've got, for the blush shades, a little bit more orangey tones, and then this one's a little bit more pink, but still leaning orange. And then you've got more grungy shades for the eyeshadows in the center. This guy actually looks a bit like a duochrome. So it's tough because I think they're super cute with the packaging, but I am, like, I could care less about what's inside, you know, because they're not, I never grab these palettes to use them for anything. And then this bear one was the larger palette that it came with. Also cute, but again, not really something that I'm gonna be grabbing. There are several pressed glitters in here. I wish that this was just a regular shimmer because it's such a pretty rose shade, but it is a pressed glitter. This is a holographic pressed glitter. I have a couple metallics, and then all of the matte shades are very neutral tones, but I do love how they look. And so I wonder if maybe what I will do is I will hold on to them for like Christmas decorations, that I'll put them up in my displays around Christmas time, but I'm not going to keep them in my regular collection just because I don't use them. Then we have 2 palettes from Electrum Cosmetics. The Ascendant palette is a palette that you cannot get anymore, but it's absolutely gorgeous. And my friend Zinnia was so awesome that she was willing to share it with me. And so she essentially like split the palettes in 2, which was awesome. So each of the pans, she like took half of it for herself and then repressed it for me. The amount of effort she put in to share this with me, I absolutely love her for it. That was so nice of her because I missed picking it up. And so I'm very pleased that I have it. But this is the new one, the Sea Witch palette. And look at these shades. Plus, look at this octopus in here. That shade is gorgeous, but I also don't really want to touch it because I don't want to mess it up. Because, is that an octopus? Yes. It looks like it's either an octopus or it's like an explosion. But either way, it looks, I'm gonna say it's an octopus because I also love octopi. I think they're so cute and they're so intelligent, and so I really like them. But these shades look very interesting, very unique. She said she did a lot of work with coming up with new formulas for everything, so I'm very interested to see how these formulas go. And then we have all of my Sailor Moon palettes. I got these from a questionable source. I think I ordered them off of Poshmark, and they are definitely something that you can get a lot of places where, like, I don't know if I would necessarily trust trying them, you know? Like, that's what I mean by, like, questionable source. Like, I don't know where these were manufactured at, and so I don't know if I necessarily trust putting them on my face. But that's fine because I primarily got them for the artwork on the outside because I will be using these as displays, and I can easily turn these into things that I use for artwork. And so I am not super concerned about the fact that I don't trust the material. Like, this one was made in an effort to look kind of like the Huda Beauty ones that are that weird gel with the speckles. Definitely don't trust that at all. There is also what looks like fingerprints in there, and I have not touched them, so sus. And so, yeah, I'm definitely not going to be using these at all, but I will be displaying all of them because I absolutely love Sailor Moon. And this one is kind of the same deal. It's got fingerprints on it, and I have not touched them. So riddle me how those showed up on there. But they are really cute on the inside, but I just mainly got them for the artwork. So, God, there's fingerprints on every single one of them. Did they just, like, touch all of them and then they were like, we're gonna sell them now that we've touched them? I don't know. But I'm keeping them for the artwork. Then we have all of my Sugar Drizzle palettes, and we've got the Pickle, very cute grungy green palette. The What If I Fall Dragonfly Warrior palette. Absolutely gorgeous. Still unique even though it's the blues, greens, and yellows. I absolutely love this. The shimmers are super beautiful on here. This is a gorgeous multi-chrome in the center on there. The Butterfly palette is super beautiful on the inside. Again, slightly different color stories, different formulas from the other palettes that I have are similar. This is one of the two original Sugar Drizzle palettes. Again, the same formula as what Adept had used, but since then Sugar Drizzle has moved on from these formulas, so it's only the Sugar Drizzle 1 and the sequel that have that same identical formula to what Adept and It's Belle Cosmetics had. And so that is both of these guys. I will keep them though, just that I keep one that has that kind of stuff on there. And so that way I'll have them. But everything else, you can also see the design changes. Like these are very basic design, but then you start to notice the artwork of like the dragonfly, the frog palette, their Halloween release, the pizza cat. I mean, those are all unique designs, and that was really when they kind of started to step outside and use other formulas. So this is their Gnome Chrome Halloween palette. I absolutely love this. Has quite a few different formulas for multi-chromes. You've got this really cool deeper silver shade. This is a stunning multi-chrome. Those are both the more smooth consistency. Some of the more chunky ones are in here. We've got some satins. So lots of different formula ideas for this one. The Pizza Cat is the same type of deal as that one. You've got a lot of different formulas, very chunky formulas, more satiny feel, more smooth, so lots of different formulas, lots of different shades that are more unique. And so I really like how Sugar Drizzle has been stepping out and away from just using the same lab as everybody else. And then the Man I Love Frogs, look how adorable. I have not touched this one yet, as we can see. That's why it still looks very pretty. But lots of gorgeous pastels, lots of different formulas, again, that we're seeing in here, and just absolutely gorgeous. And then the last that we have, we've got Glaminatrix, and I absolutely love them. We've got the Silent Night palette, which is one of my favorites. The color story is incredibly unique, and it's not one where I would initially look at it and, like, see the looks. But the shimmers are absolutely gorgeous. This tinsel shade is probably my favorite metallic foil ever. It is such a unique shade. I don't have anything else that is exactly like it, and it is gorgeous. So I absolutely love this palette. Then we have the Nocturnal, which I just talked about in my speed reviews. Really enjoy it. Lots of gorgeous shades in here. And I do like that Glaminatrix offers a lot of the shades as singles as well, so you can build your own palette. Then we have the You Beauty. Also, these two were just restocked for the last time. So if you have not picked up You Beauty or Nocturnal, this will be the last restock where you can do so. This is the You Beauty palette. It is gorgeous. I love it so, so much. The G'day multi-chrome, stunning. I mean, Old Mate, stunning. Whoop Whoop is an absolutely beautiful yellow shimmer. I don't have anything else exactly like this one either. And that's what I love about Glaminatrix, is that in all of their palettes, there are shades that I don't have anything else in my collection. And my collection clearly is massive, but I don't have any others that are exactly like that, and I love that about them. And then the final one is the Sandra Rose. This silver is an absolutely gorgeous silver foil. It is so, so stunning. A lot of the other shades are gorgeous. This Flora shade is a really beautiful metallic. Lots of stunning shades. The color story is a little bit more sporadic for me in this one, but still I can look at it and still see looks that I would want to create. And so I really enjoy it. I will be keeping all of these because I love the formula from Glaminatrix. It is really, really good. So this is the pile of all of the palettes that we are going to officially declutter completely, where they will either be given to friends or they will just be removed completely. And so I think we did pretty good. Looks like there's about 30-ish palettes in there. And then we also have a separate pile. This pile over here also has about 30, 35-ish palettes that will be kept but removed from my collection for use, and they will just be for display purposes. And then we've got all of this that we are still keeping because we loves it. And so I think I did all right. The fact that I was able to get about 60 to 70-ish palettes that I am decluttering, I think not too shabby. And don't worry, a lot of these will also be displayed because I really like the idea of being able to see what I have. But for these guys, they will only be kept for display, or that I will put them into use with some of my art projects. So you won't see these as much, but these guys, I'm very excited. But that is absolutely everything, so I would love to know what you guys think of all of it. This took me like 5 hours to film, and so I can only imagine what the end product is going to look like. I hope that I was able to get it down to around an hour for you guys, probably over, but I appreciate you guys so much for sticking around. I hope you loved seeing everything I have and the declutter. I am very excited to share with you guys some of the changes that are going to be happening. I will have an upcoming Get Ready With Me where I'll be using some of my newer palettes that I haven't touched too much yet, and I will just share with you guys all of my plans, and I love you guys so much. We did hit 1,300 subscribers, and so I'll be talking about a giveaway in my next video, and thank you guys so much. I can't even tell you guys how much it means to me that there are so many of you that like to tune in and hear about what I think about makeup, whether I like it or not, and so I just appreciate you guys so much. And other than that, you guys just go have an absolutely amazing one.